The quickest, the fastest, the best in the world.
Magnus Carlsen.
Dominant, absolutely dominant.
Chess at blazing speeds.
Get popcorn ready.
Moves without thinking.
Rook A8, Rook A8!
Tactics without blinking.
95 and it's 10.
95 even better.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, he lost no time!
The Speed Chess Championship is the elite chess event of the year. For 9 years, the world's strongest blitz players have matched wits over 64 squares.
Really nice maneuver from Anish.
This year, the world's best face off.
Rook G6 and Knight G2.
Wesley just won on time.
You're watching the SCC on Chess.com, and it starts right now.
Welcome to the Speed Chess Championship, continuing with quarterfinal matchups today as the players are looking to punch their ticket to London, England for the grand finals live in front of an audience. But we have an audience here today to watch an epic matchup that, Danny, I'm excited that you're joining me. My name is Grandmaster Ramon Hambleton. Danny, we've done the call before, but the matches are getting bigger and bigger. Welcome.
We're in the quarterfinals, right? And after today, London starts to be set, right? Winning this match means you are booking a ticket, literally, not flying tomorrow. But yeah, no, it's game time. It's go time, as they say. A lot on the line, and love seeing those aerial views of London. We'll be there in February.
Exactly. Live finals is what these 8 players are here for, Danny, right? You talk about the quarterfinals, the pressure just ramps up. There's no double elimination here, right? It's one match, different formats, and you just have to be the better player on that day.
Well, and one thing to remind everybody is that we now have a consolation match at any live finals event. We did that in Paris, obviously, in 2024. There will be a third, fourth place matchup, which isn't just because we have a live audience and we want to give the fans everything that they paid for. But remember that winning the third, fourth place matchup is a direct ticket to the Esports World Cup coming in the summer of 2026. So there literally is just so much money, so much at stake, not just for the players, for their esports organizations that they've signed. We'll obviously be giving shout outs to Team Liquid today with 2 of those players. So just so much on the line as we move into the quarterfinals.
You said it. Let's have a look at the bracket, Danny, because something really important is that you can see how many players we started with, right? The entire bracket was so filled out with so many strong players. Every round there's a potential upset, but we've whittled it down from the round of 16 down to now the quarterfinals. There are only 8 players remaining. Of course, we have Hikaru and Wesley. They've matched up so many times in the SCC. Hikaru has emerged on top so many times as well. So that matchup upcoming. Ali Reza versus Jan. They both kind of, dominated their earlier matchups. Now they're matching up against one another. Who is bringing the better form? Hans Niemann against Dennis Lasvik is going to be a truly epic matchup. I think one of the sleeper matchups of this quarterfinals. But Danny, Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, they are matching up today. You mentioned Team Liquid. This is an all Team Liquid matchup.
And it's a battle we've seen so many times between these two guys in just about every format imaginable, right? And no one will ever forget the 2018 World Chess Championship, where they drew every single classical game of chess on their way to a rapid tiebreaker. They've of course played before in the Speed Chess Championship. So Magnus has gotten the better of Fabi in pretty much every match, but Fabi played fantastic in the battle that you and I had the call on just a couple weeks ago, I guess. So we'll see what happens today rolling out. But yeah, these two guys, we've seen them play a lot, and we're going to see another thriller hopefully today.
Yeah, Magnus and Fabi is, a matchup that you can think about, there's a favorite going into this matchup. Magnus is a favorite every matchup that he plays. But, before we jump into those pre-match predictions, who's the favorite and whatnot, we did have a chance to sit down with Magnus and get his thoughts about Fabi as an opponent in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I think I was on my way back from St. Louis when I was following his match with Prague, which was very interesting, very evenly matched. Played Fabi a couple of times before in the SCC and come out ahead, maybe just once. I don't know. Last time I was unbeaten, it's going to be tough to do that again. But, you know, I'll try my best to enjoy the event, and hopefully I can get the better of him at some point. He's incredibly strong, but he does have a propensity to tilt a bit when things don't go according to plan for a bit. So maybe that's something I can exploit.
Well, you mean, you heard it there, Danny. There's not many players, maybe like on the face of the earth, that can say, oh, the last time I played Fabiano Caruana, he didn't win a game. Just, you know, let that thought sink in, Danny.
You took the words right out of my mouth, and I was going to even say there aren't many people on the planet who can say that they experience Fabiano Caruana tilting. When he said that word, it's like I think of Fabi as so stoic, as so calm, because that's the Fabi we see most of the time. But if you think about it, yeah, the one player that Fabi has tilted against probably is Magnus Carlsen, and of course he mentioned the SCC matchup. So we'll see what happens today. But that was when he said the word tilt, I was like, really? Oh yeah, actually against you, I guess Fabi can tilt.
Yeah, it's weird to think about that, you know, coming out of Fabi. But, you know, speaking of the 5-time SCC quarterfinalist, Fabi, you know, he's made an appearance in many SCC events. But when we talk about SCC now, Danny, it's kind of that hybrid format with the live finals at the end. So we had a chance to, you know, speak to Fabi and really ask him, are you more comfortable playing at home or in front of a live audience? Let's find out.
I think most of my events are like what I'm used to is playing in front of people. Like the online chess, it actually feels less natural for me because I don't feel as comfortable playing from home. It doesn't really feel like a competitive arena, you know? So I would actually much rather play in front of a live audience than play at home.
Do you expect that answer? I actually hadn't seen that video, so I'm maybe as shocked as you. What are you thinking?
I hadn't seen it either, and I didn't expect that answer, but it kind of makes sense now that I unpack, you know, how he talks about getting ready and in the right state of mind. And I was going to tell Fabi, if he wants, we could just send a live audience to his home in St. Louis. Like, we could probably arrange that if he's into it, or maybe work with the club. So, I mean, I'm kind of semi-joking, but semi-not, because we've had players play from different chess clubs. Hikaru played from a huge event I remember many years ago, and there was just a huge live audience there before we were doing live finals. So if Fabi wants, we could probably figure out an audience watching him play.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree with the sentiment in the sense that it heightens everything. I mean, this is the quarterfinals. This is a big match no matter where it gets played. But I like that the players are starting to say, you know, chess isn't that silent game that you spectate behind glass. You know, it really is now a show, and we're seeing more and more live audiences for live finals. It's great. So as we head in, Danny, to the match upcoming, you know, finally, let's get into that pre-match prediction. You know, what can we expect from the match ahead when it comes to the prediction model here? We have 77% for Magnus Carlsen, 23% for Fabiano, and it's with a pretty resounding blitz domination, because we're actually seeing the bullet being quite balanced here.
It is interesting to see bullet so balanced. I agree. That's the one, I guess, time control that definitely jumps out. You and I obviously looked at this particular pre-match statistical prediction when we were doing our round 2 kind of preview show a while ago. Interesting to note that Polymarket had Magnus Carlsen as a 54% chance to win the SCC coming in. We'll see how that holds up. But anyway, this is not that big of a surprise to see Magnus at a 77% favorite over Fabi. I actually almost could argue that maybe he could be more given their history, but you and I drew it up, and I want to talk about that because I think the time controls really matter for Fabi. If I was to outline the upset, it would need to be that first time control, that 5-1 score of 5.5, 2.5, that would have to be different. And Fabi would have to take advantage of maybe a slow starting Magnus Carlsen if he's going to have a chance today.
Yeah, I think looking at the blitz and bullet and how it's sort of broken down here, it's clearly important for Fabi to get off to a good start. I mean, it's an obvious thing to say in any match, but you know, just to give an example, a guy like Hikaru, he doesn't have to get off to a great start, to put it bluntly. He has that ace in the hole. He has the bullet portion that he can rely on so comfortably, and his skill there. Whereas I wouldn't say that's the case for Fabiano, despite the fact that it might be one of his, you know, his better segments here, according to the prediction model, Danny. I'm not sure that I'm fully on board with the idea that he can be down going into the bullet.
No, I agree 100%. And yeah, whether it's the 5-1, as I was saying, or the 3-1. Like, he can't be down going into bullet. And like, yeah. So is it even? Is Fabi somehow with a lead? I would be fascinated to see what happens there. Fabi is working more and more on bullet. We know that he performs maybe better than people traditionally think of him in the SCC in that fastest portion. But I would be surprised if Magnus doesn't get the better of the fastest time control. So we'll see.
And look, it's been a while since, you know, they last played in the SCC. We talk about that 22-4 score where there were no wins for Fabiano in their last match. That's something that you kind of want to get the monkey off your back. Just get that win at some point in the first couple of games. You know, I don't know whether he's thinking about it, but it's got to be somewhere, Danny. And, you know, I see them both in their Team Liquid gear. Fabi, I think, is one of those players that I almost feel he does actually improve event to event quite a bit when it comes to online chess, maybe because he has the room to, you know, he constantly has that rap as such a great classical player, but maybe not matching up to that very high level when it comes to speed chess. And so every time I see Fabi, I feel like he has improved.
I agree. He has. And you mentioned the Team Liquid gear. Just want to shout out that unlike the coordination that happened between Fabi and Prague, where they had the different jerseys today, both Magnus and Fabi have shown up in the championship Team Liquid gear. You and I coordinated the memo. We've got a white and black kind of chess going thing here, right? There's chessual energy between us right now. We got the light squares, the dark squares, but they didn't get the memo. You know, you guys got to coordinate what you're wearing more often.
It should have been the other way around, Danny, with your new book. Would have made more sense. But, you know, I'm here representing for you.
Keep it dark, baby. Keep it dark. I threw on the white shirt, but I guess I'm matching Fabi and Magnus today. So anyway, we are moments away. In fact, we're about 1 minute past the top of the hour. So expecting the first moves to be made. This is like the most exciting thing in my life. I just want you to know that. I just want right now. I love commentary so much. Maybe that just sounded bad, but I'm just so excited when we get a chance to do speed chess commentary. So let's go.
That's valid, Danny. Although I'm sure there are just a few people or maybe events in your life right now that are feeling a little slighted based on that comment. But they have to understand this is, you know, Magnus Carlsen, you know, the highest rated player in the world, the SCC favorite. Every time he enters a competition, he is the favorite. And then you've got Fabiano, who, you know, is always touted as that next person right behind Magnus. Sometimes he's, you know, second, third, fourth in people's rankings, but he's always up there when you think about the best players in the world. So it's just whether or not he can bring that same energy in speed chess, right? We've got that format that we're all familiar with. We've seen it in the SCC. It's going to be that 5 minute, 3 minute, and bullet. But Danny, that 1 second increment is there, which I think it really does matter, and it's starting to become the norm when it comes to online chess. You know, you have that 1 second increment to, you know, keep some, I guess, keep the game looking proper, not a complete flag fest just yet.
I mean, I think the 1 second increment is key to keeping the chess at an elite level in the SCC. Like, we've called it the great equalizer before. You see players who maybe aren't traditionally the best bullet players be able to keep up, all those things. Although I will be transparent and play poker with my cards backwards, as I often do on camera, which is that there's been discussions, given that there's been so much sudden death chess coming to our arena with the EWC. Obviously, we changed the time control of Title Tuesday. There's been discussions about that. Currently, no plans to change the increment. I love the increment in the SCC because, to me, this is our Super Bowl. This is our online elite event where the best players in the world are playing the time controls we love, and we want those moves to matter all the way down to the final second. So I like it, but I just throwing it out there that it's been discussed.
Okay, amazing. And I'm seeing here the players on cam. Of course, they're just about ready to go here. You can see that we're just moments away from beginning. And when it comes to, you know, this first couple games, I always talk about adaptability. So let's see, you know, what openings we get, if the players are happy. Basically, when you get to the bullet portion, you want to have a good idea of a reliable opening system, types of openings that you can play to get good positions. You don't want to be figuring things out when it comes to bullet because you won't have any more time to. So you have to be good to go. And that's why I think the players use the 5 minute and the 3 minute portions to test different openings. These two have played an entire, long classical world championship match, Danny. So they have discussed some positions so in depth. What have they not talked about over the board?
It's true. They've talked and not talked for hours over the board, right? They've had the deepest conversations possible, and they've had the chess pieces do all the speaking. I like what you said, though. Again, we talk about it a lot, that the first time control reveals, did they bring prep to the table? Is there something new they're going to try? Are they going to stick to roads commonly traveled? Okay, here we have a Sicilian to start with G3 played on E6, so we're not going to see the mainline open Sicilians, at least not right away from Magnus.
Right. And also, Fabi, they've gone back and forth in the Sicilian, not specifically this one as much as I'm used to, but, we've seen the Sicilian discussed in depth between these two. They're not going to go, maybe for the most popular one. And instead, G3 is played. This is a common blitz move that just avoids the mainline open Sicilians with D4. There might still be a pawn to D4, but if it does get played, it's usually going to be more supported with C3.
Yeah, note the pause there by Fabi after Queen E2, because White sometimes has tricky lines where you're going to play E5 and kick the knight early. He took a moment, decided he's actually not into that. He's going to keep the center closed and keep a stranglehold on D4 for now.
Yeah, Rook E8 has been played. There's this weird move that happened a couple moves ago. Pawn E6 to E5. I think that probably caught a lot of us off guard. Why would you play E6 and then play E5? Well, White has also changed the setup as well. We've seen queen out to E2 early, bishop's fianchettoing. This is an abnormal structure for White as well. You don't want to allow maybe that pawn to push to E5, which White was thinking about. That would open the bishop, would make sense with the queen on E2. So yes, he's lost some time, but White is developing in a bit of an unusual way.
Yeah. And now if you looked at it, you could make a guess at the move order that got you here. I think you would probably still guess E4, but it could even have been a move 1 knight F3, some sort of King's Indian attack type of structure being set up. And often in those positions, White will strive for F4, which is why Magnus brought that knight back. So we'll see what he chooses to do now that Rook B8 is played.
Yeah, sometimes you get these weird maneuvers in this opening. We're actually seeing it on the board right now. It's like the knight from B1 went to A3, C4, E3. The knight from G1 went to F3, D2. Maybe it will return to the C4 square. So just so interesting to see these knights. It's like they could have reached these squares much quicker, but they've been kind of dancing around in an unusual way, maneuvering to their best squares.
Fascinating to see an only move by the computer suggested in such a tame-looking position. Fabi does find it. I think it's because you really could not afford White to have played F5 and then start to go for this all-out attack. So interesting that Fabi senses the moment, can't let Magnus keep the structure closed, and does play the best move to keep a little more open tension in the position. So,
yep, you're highlighting exactly what everyone in this game is focusing on, the rook on E8 and the queen on E2. That in some cases allows for D5 to be played in the right moment, also B7 to B5, and then onwards to B4, looking to carve out the D4 square for the C6 knight. Of course, Magnus would look to leave the pawn on C3, never play C4, never take on B4, but in terms of counterplay for Fabi, it's probably going to be with that B pawn. That's why he has the rook on B8 and perhaps even G6, and looking to get that bishop on the long diagonal.
Yeah, I like that. That's a slow plan there. Though I like what Fabi has gotten over here on the queen side too with B5. Whether he keeps going with things like B4 or not, it already feels like Black has maintained the position. And that's not just because the computer thinks it's 50-50. I think just about everything is equal here. They're also pretty close on the clocks. Both players kind of finding their pace here. So this is gonna be a day today. Magnus Fabi. You and I have had some close matches so far, Amon. Knock on wood. We've had some good luck. I just knocked on wood for us, not to jinx it.
Thank you. Yeah, looking out.
You're welcome.
We see rook A8 because the bishop on C1 can't move. Now it seems like we've got the highest rated player in the world just forgetting to finish development, but it's actually kind of a feature of these openings. Notice how the bishop is guarding the B pawn, which could come under attack, queen A1, queen A2. So it's really kind of helpful for Magnus to say, okay, let's trade the rooks on the A file. that wasn't doing anything for me. My focus is more in the center and on the king side, and the bishop on c1, truthfully, can do all it needs to do on the king side from c1. So it's just about getting maybe the other pieces out of the way in front of it. And we see a very combative move here that is getting a question mark, Danny, but Magnus is not playing this for no reason. He's calculated something.
Yeah, it's a practical shot, too, taking advantage of the temporary pin on the long diagonal because that knight on c6 can't move without losing a rook. White has 2 pieces attacking a8, kind of an x-ray through this. So is Black going to take twice and take with the rook? That is what Magnus is inviting. But what is the tactical? Ooh, he has knight e4. He's taking advantage of another knight pin with f7 being under fire.
Yeah, and you're all in on, removing the pieces. For example, bishop e7, he might even be thinking about knight takes f6 followed by knight to d5. Or maybe in some weird way you could play knight d5 first. I don't know. But I think it's all about that f7 square and the pressure generated on the f file. However, the computer is saying that everything's okay. It might have to do with the fact that the rook on e5 in the right moment when the e3 knight moves could slide to f5. And that, I think, deals with that f file. Yeah, the pressure nicely on the f file.
Yeah, I used the blue arrow there because I wanted to highlight a Mon suggestion would be maybe the computer idea. But another idea could be that once you play bishop e7, you also have the... Okay, he brings the queen over right away. I was going to say the queen isn't stuck on a8. She can slide over and also start to help. Computer did not like that move order, though. Really wanted Fabiano to play bishop e7 first.
Right. Yeah, I guess just... Well, here, there's knight takes f6, and there is a pawn hanging there, so... Just at the minimum, there's that available. I think Magnus already could say that his idea is worth it, but he does go for that knight d5 move. I mentioned this one last turn. We didn't have to take on f6. We could just go immediately. The idea is, again, f7 is falling, and if you take with the rook, knight takes f6 now, picks up the rook on d5.
Yeah, we got to analyze this just to show the tactics, because Amon called it. Nice eye, and now it's on the board. If rook, well, I'm just going to quickly show. If rook takes, as Amon was saying, you take on f6 with check, and then no matter how black takes back, you're picking up the rook here. So that's how you get away with that knight being on pre. But we don't need to show what happens if knight takes, because it's exactly what Fabi did, and it's already on the board. Queen takes f7. I think Magnus will just recoup the bishop, or is there something else here?
The reality is there doesn't need to be anything else. Like, that is already very good. The only other moves you're trying to look at are maybe knight g5, bishop e4 check, but it just, like I said, unnecessary. You've got the bishop pair, you've got an extra pawn. There's probably a very important move, if I had to guess here, because I'm surprised that... Or actually, hang on a sec. I correct myself. Not an extra pawn.
Yeah, not an extra pawn, because Magnus sacked,
Yep, he sacked, exactly. So, I was wondering why the evaluation could be so close to equal here. This is the advantage I think that Magnus was looking for, and key difference, Danny, that bishop e7 move that the engine liked, it would have saved the bishop from being hanging in this exact line.
Yeah. No, totally. And well said that Magnus isn't up a pawn yet, but he does have the bishop pair, which makes other pawns weaker. Can't take just yet. Rook e1 check would be lights out. So Magnus has to think about how he wants to either get the bishop in the game. Okay, he does go to d2, which is nice because not only does it guard e1, but it might even have plans to use e1 and eventually relocate to some different diagonals. Although I think if Magnus gets one more move, the rook coming over here behind the pawns is an idea. Although, as I highlighted, you can't do any of it yet because the knight and bishop guard everything. So keep an eye out for the rook swinging over to attack Black's queenside pawns. Yeah,
I'm kind of waiting for maybe a move like c4. I don't know if it was possible or the right idea on that last move, but pawn to c4 undermines the e4 knight in a nice way. But moves that attack the rook were bothering Fabi, which is why he brought the knight back to defend that bishop on f5 for exactly this reason. Bishop to f4, pawn to d4, moves hitting the rook were kind of annoying. Notice how the bishop on g3 does defend e1, so knight c5 is a threat.
It's funny, the only move was king to g6 because of knight to c5, and Magnus doesn't have to be asked twice. He finds it. That rook is running out of squares. You got all kinds of problems
c6. There. Yeah, rook e2, bishop c6, or rook f5, like some combination. You're losing something. And, well, he says, okay, let's take on d3. Knight takes e6, d2. Is that the idea? And then maybe bishop f3. Oh, my goodness. What is this?
Wow. Magnus played rook takes. And that's a fascinating move instead of just taking the rook. I guess on d2, couldn't you have still played bishop f3? So I don't know what Magnus calculated fully there. I think just taking e6 was the best computer line, but here we go. Back to 50-50 if Fabi finds the best move, which he does. He's going to pick up his piece back.
Yeah, he's going to get the piece, and I think the really nasty part is the knight on d1 is situated perfectly to win one of the pawns on the queen side, so should be doing a good job. I imagine we're going to see knight c7, this kind of move in order to try to take that b pawn.
Interesting. b4 first, trying to cement the b5 pawn. He's going to probably protect c3. Yeah, he does that so that he can go back to your idea with knight to c7 next. I think in a practical sense, I still like White's chances here, but definitely not the most Magnus could have gotten from that blunder earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you could trade a pair of knights here, I think Fabi would be nearly winning the endgame. But of course, both players here are well aware of that, and we're certainly not going to see it happen.
Yeah, and Fabi doing the best, though. He's going to go remove that bishop. Oop, nope. You go there, but now the knight comes to e4. Now. Yeah, this bishop is running out of squares. Fabi's in a great spot here.
Mm-hmm. The knight will guard b5 after knight takes c3, by the way. It's definitely riskier to be playing with the bishop here, but the one thing that you can underestimate is we see king f3 looking to fork with the king. How about that?
Wow. We might get an all-out nice knight race. You almost never see these. If black goes for the h2 pawn, okay, you take b4. Is Fabi going to go for the h2 pawn while white wins the b5 pawn, and we have... I have no idea what we have here. This is going to be wild.
Because you can go knight c4 to a3 or knight c4 to d6 and guard the pawn. Is he losing connection? The webcam, he looked upset about some connection there.
What happened there?
Well, obviously, yeah. I'm not sure if the webcam is anything to read into. Like, the quality of it is what I mean, because I have been noticing that Fabi's cam quality here is, not the highest, but clearly he wasn't liking something even before his time was running out. I'm not sure he was able to get that moving.
Yeah, that's super frustrating. I don't know where Fabi's playing from. He doesn't look like he's in his normal home setup based on the Fabiano we know. So whatever happened there with the connection is highly unfortunate, but it is unfortunately one of the things you have to factor in a high stakes online match. So we're going to see if the team is working with Fabiano to figure something out, or if it's just a bad connection.
Frustrating. Really very frustrating, Danny, but it almost goes back. And I think about that interview that we saw right at the top of the show where it was like, playing in person versus playing at home. And I'll just comment, I don't know if this is true for him, but for me, one thing I can understand about that is it's nice to play in front of an audience because it's no longer your connection. You know what I mean? You're not responsible as much for your own connection. You're kind of usually playing on the highest possible conditions, and it kind of removes that element of, am I connected properly, and I think that is one of the reasons why I would say I much prefer to play in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. And also just being comfortable with what because even if sometimes you have connection issues at home, you kind of have a little bit more experience on how to troubleshoot it, right? So I don't know where Fabi is. He's working with the team now. It's both related to game ops and fair play ops, just in terms of how we operate at Chess.com. We've got the players always on second cameras and screen shares. And so we're going to make sure that we can refresh and give Fabi the best support he can. But all right, let's go over the end of this game, Amon, and just see what maybe could have happened, because I think we were headed for a draw until Fabi's unfortunate mishap.
Yeah, it was right here. Pawn takes on b4. Obviously, Magnus is waiting for a pretty critical decision. So I can, him running out of time is a different story, but this being a difficult decision, I do understand, because do you play knight f1 here and grab h2 and say, okay, the b pawn is actually quite far away from my king, and my knight, I'm not sure, this is where time is a factor. I don't know if my knight can scramble all the way back successfully to catch that b pawn, because my king cannot. Or do I play knight c4 and knight a3 and just kind of camp out and try to be as tricky as possible, defend, and eventually sack my knight? So I feel like I would maybe take the knight c4 a3 or knight c4 d6 approach here.
And just checking because we're in analysis mode, I turned on the engine lines, which we don't normally have. We have the eval bar, and you are right. In fact, it's really instructive to see that this could get dangerous. I think the king can go to different squares, but there just are spots where this B pawn is going to be so hard for Black to deal with. It's not how many pawns you have in endgames like this. It's who gets a queen first,
And
right?
I think
so
we
this
have the
could be
game.
very
I think we have the game
Oh,
back. Yeah, which is
we
why
have the
we're going to
game.
jump back into it here.
Okay.
As exciting as that end game is, and believe me, I was on the edge of my seat in that, knight end game with pass pawns. I'd have to say that, game game number 2 is probably higher on my list.
Okay, you were right. I missed that we were back, and happy to see that Fabiano, whatever we needed to work on there. Shout out to the team working hard to help.
Yeah,
the
they
players
actually
behind the
shout out to the team because they must have just got on it much better and quicker than expected. It's a good problem to have, let's say.
Yeah, here we go. All right, well, let's see. We got an end game. We were already more than a minute and a half in, so my apologies for that. Do we want to back up and see the opening? I thought we were going to be in a night ending for a minute.
Let's
do
especially because now it's probably a bit more thought placed into the moves. Let's do a brief scan of the opening there.
Okay. Queen's
this
Gambit
is pretty thematic stuff, and you see the delayed knight on G1 usually means it's going to E2. Otherwise, we would have seen knight F3 much earlier on in the position.
This is pretty straightforward, traditional Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit
I'll say
stuff,
that the move A4 to me is like I would. It's almost like if I was coaching a student, I would say that's probably a mistake, like a move not to play. But I certainly won't use that move here with Fabi. He's at that level of excellence in chess that he can now make those quote unquote mistakes again. Like he's good enough to know when they're allowed to be played. And trust me, the idea is much deeper. But usually you probably wouldn't do it because it weakens the B4 square. We can see how Fabi continued. He's saying, let me shut down what's going on there and maybe go for F3, E4. But it looks like things liquidated much quicker because of this push with C5.
No, it's a good point because normally this setup is designed for F3 and E4. That's why you're doing the rook thing, and that's why you have the knight not on the F3 square. So to go back to the traditional development of the knight on F3, but not have the quote unquote minority attack, which is what White often does in this structure to advance the 2 pawns, the queen side. So White kind of didn't have either plan here, which means I feel like advantage Magnus. And as we get caught up to the live game, Black did kind of get a good spot here. Although, wow, these tactics got wild.
Yeah, at this point, you're really focused on a position that is fundamentally better for White. Like the structure, everything is better. So that's why Magnus is going knight A4, knight B2. He's happy to get a mess here because it doesn't look good if White just plays B3, solidifies A4. So I understand why Magnus went for this, but it also does not reek of desperation. He kind of looks like he's inviting all of this, and he's happy to sack the exchange because of this great C4 square anchored in, and this B pawn, which is actually quite dangerous.
Yeah, he does sack the exchange. Fabi goes for it and then gives it right back with rook to B1 because he'd rather eliminate this dangerous B pawn than keep the exchange. And just like that, we're pretty much caught up to the live position where the endgame is teeny bit better for Black because you have this extra pawn, but it's currently well blockaded by Fabi.
Yeah, king F8. It's almost a remarkably tame position here with that 1 pawn advantage. I will say it's probably a little bit worse for Fabi than the engine's giving it credit for. I would say this is kind of significant here. The king on H1 is quite far from the action. It appears as though there's a bit of a bishop A6. Like, if bishop A6 can work and you can get your hands on this B pawn, then equality is a little bit easier to find because bishop A6, bishop C8, knight C6 is a very funny looking, like, I guess, exploiting the pin and then taking the B7 pawn. So I think that variation is why we saw H3, so that there's no back rank issues for the white king. But I'm not sure that you're actually claiming this pawn. I think it's all about that calculation, Danny.
Well, because bishop c8 does 2 things. It doesn't just overprotect the pawn. It actually frees up the d7 square, right? To Amon's point, don't play king e7 because you get these weird tactics. But if you play bishop a6 now, knight to d7 can attack the rook. And now you're choosing either keeping the pin, which will let the pawn advance maybe at some point, or you move the rook off, and that would, of course, lose your bishop. So I think bishop
Well, I got
c8 was a
another
very
one for you, Danny.
smart
Like
move. Yeah.
you're pointing out king e7, knight c6, but another funny one is bishop, bishop a6, and if rook a8, bishop takes b7, it's almost rook b8, right? And it's like, it's like back into this pin, and I'm like getting lost trying to calculate who's actually getting out ahead. Rook takes f6 might have to be played there.
It's wild. I do think knight to d7 would be, anyway, yeah. So this is all kinds of weird tactics, but it is the key storyline of the game. Will white find a way to not just keep this pawn blockaded, but maybe create other problems, or does black get enough time to... Okay, where are we at?
Well, I'm looking at no camera here for Fabi. That's where we're at. I mean, his time's ticking down. I don't see a webcam.
Oh, no. I didn't even see it.
It's looking like bad to worse type of thing. Same situation. I actually, maybe to Game Op's credit, I didn't realize that they had figured things out that quickly. I thought they were still looking into that. And I don't know. It looks like it's kind of same troubles here for Fabi to navigate.
Wait, was king e7 actually played?
There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, the game's going on. King e7.
I'm not going to lie, Danny. We were on the analysis board here. I thought that you took us here and were showing the tactic, instructive moment.
No, I was letting you finish your sentence. I didn't want to interrupt, but I was sitting there wondering whether because there was no hands Dan. It wasn't me. I think king e7 was a blunder by Magnus, and Fabi just, maybe because of his time-related issues, which is unfortunately a really ominous.
At that point, we weren't even sure. Maybe Fabi, if he was connect, he's probably just almost getting back to the position, just happy to make a move so that he's continuing to play. And it just so happened that in that moment Magnus blundered, but it's so unlike Magnus with all that time. I don't know what we just witnessed, actually, Danny. I'm as confused as probably our audience is right now, watching Fabi navigate time pressure and Magnus blunder away his pawn there, blunder away the exchange with king e7 is very uncharacteristic.
Couldn't agree more, but king e7 definitely did happen, or it wouldn't be on d6. So there was no relay error here, right? This isn't a DGT board, folks, right? This isn't some sort of you pressed the wrong square. So there's no world where the king is on e5 if it hadn't gone to e7, which means we did see that blunder by Magnus right at the craziness of Fabi losing his connection again. Okay, this could be a wild day for reasons we didn't anticipate. Amon, who knows what's ahead for us?
Exactly. I mean, I guess we are just kind of back into the game normally here, and assuming that Fabi's kind of maintaining his connection just fine, I guess we're sort of headed towards equality. I do think that, if anyone's having a conversation about maybe being slightly better, could it be Fabi here with this pawn? I like the dark square control, but ultimately, I don't think with a minute that Magnus is really going to let anything happen here, right?
Well, I'm more worried about Fabi's connection in regards. I mean, yes, Magnus has more time, and I'm just the position that Fabiano lost in game one, for those just tuning in, was also a draw, and Fabiano lost on time. He's struggling with the connection, not in his normal setup. So I look at Fabi's time and go, uh-oh, I hope he doesn't get in that spot again. So
yeah, absolutely. There was actually a moment instead of bishop c2 where I thought a funny move, maybe even a good one, was g6. Sacking the pawn in order to play king g5, king f6. Apart from that, there doesn't look like there's too much for these players to play for. But if I'm Magnus, I'm playing on a little bit because there's clearly some connection issues here. You never know what's going to happen. The game does end in a draw, a fair result, and I think Danny, at this point, after kind of both games going in a similar trend at the end for Fabi, it's actually something to take a look at.
Agreed, and that's exactly what the team is going to do. We're being told that there's going to be the break now. We normally have it about halfway through, so we will keep you posted if this is our official break, if it's a break specifically to help Fabiano. But it looks like we're going to take a break, Amon.
Yeah, no, definitely after a couple instances, time to take a look at it. We will be right back, but after this break. welcome back to the Championship. Magnus and Fabi are continuing, and Danny, you can obviously feel it on Fabi's webcam there on his face. Like, he's a little bit frustrated, but from what I understand, going to push through and continue here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and don't really know where Fabi is in the world. Actually, we stay in pretty regular touch. I know he was on vacation, and obviously anyone can see that he's not in his normal setup. But it is part of the rules. It is actually part of literally the player's agreement / contract, and something that we really do push and emphasize, because it's not something we can really control. Right? You get the convenience of an online event, but the responsibility of assuring that you are in a great spot. So we are all hoping that it's not the major storyline today.
Yep, and as we get back into things, one of the interesting things about this opening is I'm really sitting here wondering when the last time we saw it in an SCC was, because the Benoni is not a regular participant here. But I will say, Danny, the reason that we're seeing it looks like the G3 move. It is kind of a thing that if you see D4, C4, G3 in the opening, you respond to it with C5 and invite the Benoni, because this is, you know, quote unquote, the worst Benoni that you can play as white, and it's still pretty good.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, because it's the worst Benoni you can play as white, and black is still at least slightly worse. But yeah, the Benoni structure that D6, C5 versus white's kind of extended D pawn and the potential to play for E4 and F4. The G3 system is not as dangerous for black. You aren't expanding as quickly, but white still enjoys a comfortable space edge.
Exactly. That's what the opening is all about. This idea of playing... hang on a sec. Is this a piece? He's got a smirk on his face like it is. Bishop D7. This is the move knight A3. It stops B5. And the reason it's so good is you can't actually make B5 happen, because you need D7 to support it, but you also need that square for your knight. And this is what we're talking about. This Benoni is such a frustrating opening. I understand why Fabi played knight H5 and quickly, Danny, because he trapped his own knight, plain and simple. That's all there is to it. He's just trying to get counterplay at this point. Knight on H5, hitting the G3 pawn as well. So yeah, the idea is exactly this. Pawn takes on E5, bishop takes on E5, and at this point, if we see maybe like G4, perhaps the idea, this is surprising. And actually, the blue arrow from the engine is even more surprising, just to me as a commentator. My thought is you always want to take this dark square bishop for the knight. So I was thinking knight takes on F4, G takes on F4, maybe bishop D4 check, with the black queen coming to H4, and maybe rook to E3, kind of attacking the H3 pawn. That's what I was expecting. But the blue arrow from the engine here, Danny, is saying bishop takes on F4, presumably with queen H4 and rook E3 in mind. And it would be truly shocking if Fabi hung a piece and found a way back into this.
Yeah. Sorry, what a wild day going on right now. The chess is wild. The only thing more wild is everyone's internet connection. Like I said, Mercury must be in retrograde or something. I don't know what's going on with the universe right now. But wow. Okay, look at this. Knight takes G3. The miss instead of the line you said. And
yeah, initially I was thinking knight takes F4, but computer was saying, hang on, bishop takes on F4, which is unusual, because why would you not want to maintain your dark square bishop at the end of the line? So I totally understand what Fabi is thinking, but you just don't get to do it. Bishop E5 is going to be met by knight C4, bishop D4 check by E3. There's no way to keep that bishop just dominating on those dark squares the way you'd like. So for that reason, Magnus is definitely far ahead, but has to be said, despite Fabi's, let's call it, maybe connection issues, Danny, and then also here spilling into his chess as well, hanging a full piece, I will say Magnus has blundered in a number of games in moments where you'd be shocked that he did.
No, I agree, and I'm just going to say it. It's awkward when we're dealing with maybe the two best chess players in their generation. I don't know, but this hasn't been the best chess today, Amon. I'm just going to say it. Like there's been a lot of blunders, right?
Mhm.
It's just been wild. And obviously there are many who would maybe try to challenge that, but these guys are definitely objectively two of the best, and I'm just not as impressed as I normally am so far. And it just been weird. So Magnus just gave back the piece, but he's got a bunch of targets, so I guess White still has a big advantage here now.
Well, yeah, he's up a rook, so this is.
I didn't even notice the rook. Sorry, I'm just like,
Yeah.
there's so much going on here. Yeah,
He's basically got it. You would think, like at this point,
Yeah.
f7 is a target. It was Fabi that wanted to maintain his dark square bishop. To our point earlier about knight c4 coming, he wanted to keep it so bad he was willing to sack the exchange. I mean, I don't know if that's the right decision or not, but it was the one that he decided to do. You can't move the bishop on f5 because of the f7 pawn. So it is really, really tough to play this position. I don't really know what we're going to see next from Fabi. You know, like h5, h4 comes to mind, but yeah, you really don't have any threats.
I mean, you're down a rook. And by the way, the knight coming to c4 wasn't just useful because it hits d6 and guards e3, but it also opens up the a3 square for the rook, not only to swing across the third rank, but maybe to go to b3. So Fabi is going to realize very quickly that being down a rook is probably just too much, even if he, solidifies the bishop or whatever else. So,
yeah, that's actually a great point, Danny, because I was looking at b5, and that's the answer. It's that rook a3 move, I think. We're hitting the bishop before you have time to cement with h4, h5, h4, and that's why we're seeing different reactions. But rook a3 is actually a key defensive resource, and that was a big spot.
Okay, well, yeah, rook e4 played, but the computer says rook a3, the only way for White to maintain the large advantage he has. Magnus finds it. And now probably your call of e3. It's awkward when there's a bunch of pieces hanging, but that bishop is run out of squares, and you would gladly trade the dark squared bishop for that knight on c4. And in fact, Magnus finds it.
I agree. Yep. To me, this is about the end of the line because I don't see a place for that bishop. We see a little head shake there from Fabi. He's under a minute. I think this is, like I said, pretty much the end because rook takes on c4. Just take on f4. At that point, you start to have a conversation of like, this is a full rook, and knight d2 and e4 I'm expecting just to kind of seal things.
Yeah, and the dark squared bishop has survived to his credit. You got to give the bishop credit because Fabi's been willing to give up every piece in their cousin to keep that piece alive. And at least right now, he will keep the bishop for a little longer, willing to lose the light square bishop instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, d2 is hanging, so he is going to grab it. Yes, there are some chances with these bishops. Despite being that rook down, it is only +3 or so. Instead of you might think like, oh, +4, +5. Not quite. There is a little bit of counterplay, but there's just no threats to make. It's really just whether Fabi can keep the position solid enough that it's tough to break through, but you will always be able to break through with that extra rook.
Yeah, rooks are just too much. In fact, now Magnus is like, look, I'm going to get rid of this bishop, happily giving up a rook and just use my extra minor piece if you let me. I wonder if he'll take first. Although it is funny, you have to give Fabi credit that despite being down a rook, it hasn't been so clear yet. Now he has this c pawn. Although the more we look at it and the more you look at the clock, it's probably just delaying the inevitable right now.
Yeah, the clock is really telling the story here. There's also a few situations where you might be able to make use of rook takes e5 with the idea of getting the queen to h6. Even better, don't even need to take the bishop to make it happen because of the back rank threats. Queen f4 looking to play queen h6, but also picking up the dangerous c pawn, which was really the only semblance of counterplay.
Yeah. And now rook takes e5 is going to be back on the agenda. If you want, if you're into it,
queen
get rid of the
e7
bishop.
maybe.
Oh,
queen e7 is just like.
Did you eat your breakfast this morning? You spotted a couple nice ideas, with that the knight maneuver earlier in the game and now at the first game and now queen e7. I like it.
Yeah, had the Wheaties, Danny.
You did. You hit those Wheaties, and I love it. All right. Well, Magnus taking a minute to figure out how he wants to convert on his full rook advantage. He loves Amon Hamilton's Queen E7. I was going to say, I still expect that bishop to just leave the board at some point, and now you're just up a piece.
Yeah. You have the d pawn here, which you're just going to play rook d1, d7, and he does even better, rook a1. Yep. No doubt that this is going to be a win.
And is that the game that takes us to our halfway point, or we get one more? It looks like one more squeezed in before we officially get over that halfway timer. Again, we take a break at halftime in each of these two longer time controls, the 5-minute and the 3-minute portion. If for some reason you're new to the Speed Chess Championship, but if I'm Bobby, I'm almost disappointed at getting to that break, getting a chance to just collect myself, given how unfortunate this start has been, both on the board and with the internet issues.
Yep, exactly right. I mean, in some ways, I don't think it could have started worse for Fabi, because one of the things I was saying was, especially before that first break, it's like get a win on the board, because it's starting to really get up there in total games without a win in the SCC against Magnus for Fabi. And that starts to get to you. In this match, it kind of started out with, look, there were chances, right? There was that king e7 move by Magnus with knight c6. Even in this game, or the last one rather, the Benoni, there was a chance playing bishop takes f4, even after hanging a piece. So he can't be completely disappointed here, because despite everything that's maybe gone wrong for Fabi, he has had his moments.
Yeah. He has had his moments. Will he get a moment here? I'm openly rooting for Fabi now to get his first win against Magnus in the SCC in and I think more than 2 years, actually. For those who missed some of our pregame breakdown, Magnus beat Fabiano Caruana the last time they played in the Speed Chess Championship, and Fabiano did not win a single game in that match. So again, we all want Fabi to win. I think Magnus wants Fabi to win at this point. Like, let's go for Team Liquid.
Yeah, exactly. I predict the winner of this match is going to be someone from Team Liquid. A shocker there. Bishop g5, maybe provoking sometimes the move h6. Then you can gain some time with queen c1. Also reserving this bishop on c2 can make an appearance on b3 in the future. So there's some pressure to be placed on these pawns, right? You play king h7 to defend h6, then suddenly maybe the f7 pawn needs a little bit more attention. So let's see how Fabi handles this. It's definitely going to be our last game before our break. Not that he knows that, or that's even a 1% thought right now for him. But this is an opening that I think he is pretty happy with compared to the ones that he's been playing so far, like the Benoni. I think he's much more comfortable here. And this, I think, is a big moment. 2.5, 1.5 going into the break, Danny. That's a huge achievement for Fabi based on how things have started.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And this opening is a big achievement as compared to the other few he's had. And again, also the time on the clock. Now, as I say it is even and Fabi lower for the first time. But for the most part in this game, the other achievement has been that Fabi had his first real edge on the clock. And you really like to see him maintain that. So he has a better position. I love how you pointed out the advanced ideas of why the bishops go up and they provoke and then back up. I think that's instructive for viewers to kind of understand some of those grandmaster maneuvers. And now you've got tactics with bishop b3. You might even try to open up the queenside structure in some positions. Fabi's taken a moment to really think about where he wants this one to go.
Yeah, if you're considering bishop b3, then the other consideration is, do I want my b pawn in front of that bishop when I play it? You mentioned c4 could be an idea here, but the d pawn is immediately going to be loose. This is getting wild, as it's actually Magnus who's interested in opening everything up, right? This is kind of surprising, but there it is, d5, and which side is basically more ready to handle the open center? Yeah, I'm actually looking also at so after e takes d5, if you take knight takes d5, there is maybe the move c4 to consider. In some cases, you could just take everything in the center and play from there. But I'm getting the feeling that if everything exchanges, that somehow Magnus's pieces are going to be positioned a little bit nicer. Like the c3 pawn will be weak from the bishop on g7 and maybe a knight on d5. And the queen on c1 is blocking the rook on a1 from going to d1 and occupying the center. So this is definitely a tough spot, and I can understand maybe why Magnus is taking some time here, and we do see c4. I just don't think there was an option for d takes e5 there. There was no way that you could just capture on e5, allow Magnus's pieces to take the center. That's like, queens on d8, rook e8, and meanwhile, white is super slow playing queen b2, rook a to d1. Don't really care for it, so I think that c4 was the right decision, and I wouldn't be surprised if, well, let's think here. Where's this knight going to go? I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if rook b1 happens or d5 to shut everything down, and then maybe rook b1 to hit the bishop on b7. So I kind of thought that d5 was the move there, but tempted by perhaps a free pawn.
Am I back?
Hello, Danny.
Hey,
you're back. I just
What
had
is going on
a
here?
really
It's not-
long, extended thought there. I just wanted to grab the mic and really, really say my piece.
Hey, if anyone didn't even know I was gone, then that's a really great transition by the production and by Amon Hamilton. So sorry for breaking the fourth wall there. But the world is wild today. I'm also struggling with internet issues here at an amazing studio office we have that I have not struggled with internet issues in a very long time. So who knows what's going on? Me and Fabi are in this together right now.
There you go. Well, the position that you've come back to is actually, I want to say, very similar to the one you might have left in. Slight edge for Fabi. But the moves that have happened to get us here, Danny, we've actually seen big advantages slip and be offered by both sides. I do think Magnus is playing pretty loose today. There's been a lot of opportunities for Fabi. So far, in most of the moments where he's had an opportunity to claim an advantage, he hasn't taken it. And those are starting to stack up in my head as missed opportunity. And how many does Magnus realistically offer? Probably less than most competitors in the event, which means if you're passing them up and missing those small moments where they do exist, they're not going to be back.
Yeah, Magnus doesn't give you many, right? As they say. And if you swing at the king, you best not miss, right? You don't want to be in a spot where you look back and had a lot of opportunities. Just to show quickly, because d takes e5 was there. Bishop to c6 by Magnus got out of it. And so the main thing I'm just going to show was that right here, I guess, I was gone. You didn't want to take e5, apparently. Okay. Sorry, showing it to kind of get caught up with the blunder you were referencing. And now where are we at? Fabi still has a little
not so easy now, right? This is a much different position. I was mentioning that it felt like if the center completely opened, that Black's pieces would be situated a little bit better to handle it. So I do credit Fabi for playing this rook a3 to e3. It happened actually by Magnus in the previous game, but rook a3 to e3, really nice activation. That fixes the problem, because I was thinking the queen on c1 is stopping me from playing rook d1. So I'm really bothered by this. And then to get this coordination, I think Fabi has done pretty well here, but still opportunities missed. And we're in a position where the engine is recommending a completely crazy move, knight d3, which means, Danny, because it's not played, there's a big opportunity for Fabi.
Yeah, and the engine goes right back with a blue arrow for white, saying queen e3 is the only way to capitalize on Magnus missing knight to d3. And the point is, if the queens come off the board, everybody, this battery just becomes too much, because the knight is pinned to the rook on e8, and all of a sudden white just has a ton of pressure. I think white is winning at least a pawn after the move f6, and Fabi finds it. No hands there. The queens are going to come off, and I think Fabi might be in a chance to get his first win of the match. Let's go.
Yeah, queen e3 is a big one. Now, it's very hard to not capture on e3, so I think that was more or less forced. You do have this idea of the bishop taking on e5, maybe followed by f4. The one thing there was, I was wondering about knight e4 first, with the idea that if the knight moved from e5, Danny, there was knight takes f6, winning that rook on e8. So you had an opportunity to bring the knight in, threaten the f6 pawn. Now, I understand why he did this. It's a great looking knight on e4, but I think, once again, he let Magnus off the hook just a little bit.
You were right. Computer liked your line better. For those wondering what it was Amon's knight e4 first. Just checked over here on my other screen. And now white still has an edge here. That knight is sitting pretty on a beautiful square. But yeah, it's like the rook is so active. And if you're not going to actually target these pawns, how are you really converting on anything as Fabi?
Yep. Yeah, rook e3, rook e6 rather. Everything's guarded now, and you can see 20 seconds left. Fabi he's got a fine position, but fine is, not really good enough. The momentum, I think, is actually shifting the other way as we see a few head shakes from Fabi. He's got to maintain his composure here to not let it keep swinging.
Yeah, and he's down to under 20 seconds, so his time advantage I mentioned earlier gone, and you know that he's struggled with some internet lag today, and so you worry about that. But can he keep up on the clock and on the board? The edge is basically gone.
Yeah, bishop e7 and activating this king. I have to say king h6 for me is a little bit weird because I guess I'm not sure. There's no king g5 coming. I would have expected the king to come in the other way, but this is actually setting up an idea I hadn't considered, bringing the bishop into g5 and stationing it on f4, and then maybe the king can kind of go around the other way.
Yeah, a nice spot for the bishop to guard everything. Oh, no, Magnus is going to go for a different idea, maybe back to your original one. Going to slide the king over, gets into f5, but where do you go next? I mean, it feels like a lot of this is just pushing Fabi on the clock, because how do you get in when the knight is just holding every single light/dark square?
Yeah, there's 5 seconds, so you don't always have to get in. Like, there doesn't have to be an answer. You can kind of wait for a potential blunder. The rooks are tied down to that c-pawn. There's really nothing that will change that, and I don't see any way for the rooks to adjust or for the knight to move. Right, the knight on e4, if it stays there. Okay, there we see a change in the position, c5.
Yeah, now Fabi's saying he might be the one who's still pushing a little bit. Both sides are going to be under 10 seconds here in a moment. I wonder if Fabi will regret not having just repeated the moves there.
Yeah, it's possible. There could be a repetition here as well, but as black, you don't have to take this.
Yeah, but it looks like Magnus is going to, and we do have a draw, which I guess, at least from Fabiano's perspective, you kind of stop the bleeding. You're down 2 games headed into halftime. Not what you wanted, but yeah, it could still be worse.
Exactly. But I think no matter what, Fabi just needs a break, period, right? He just needs to reset. That was such a strange start to the match. If he ever goes over those games, he'll immediately see, oh, there was chances for me here, here, and here. He almost had a big moment in every single game to potentially flip things around. Magnus has sort of been playing the man a little bit. He knows that Fabi's not quite settled into the match yet. He's keeping things a little bit loose. And that's why he has a 3-1 lead right now, Danny.
But both players are keeping things a little bit loose on the board. This hasn't been the best showing yet from either of them. We've seen blunders, not normally coming from these two guys, because we know the caliber of chess they maintain. So it feels like it's been a wild start. Fabi hopefully gets the break he needs, maybe stabilizes his connection even further, and can get his first win against Magnus Carlsen in the SCC in a very long time. Yep.
Well, I'm excited for the rest of this section. And speaking of Chess.com is excited to announce Zenny as the official eyewear partner. Whether you need prescription glasses, sunglasses, or blue light protection, Zenny has the perfect fit for you. You can explore hundreds of styles in a range of shapes, materials, colors. Try them on at home with Zenny's virtual try-on feature. So look no further for your perfect pair of glasses through October 31st. I'm just going to say much later than that, through until now. 15% off with SCC 15, ! Zenny in chat to claim your offer. We're going to take a break, and there's 5+1 returning after this.
The Esports World Cup 2025 was electric. The best games played by the best teams. Our esports arenas sold out. We filmed them with hundreds of thousands of roaring fans, including 2,000 of the most dedicated supporters coming from our Super Fans program who came to Riyadh to cheer on their favorite teams. We had more than 4,000 media outlets covering all the action on site and broadcasting the EWC around the globe. Esports World Cup 2025 was bigger, louder, and even more unforgettable, and celebrating those who proved they are the best in the world.
My name is Jules Schulman, and I am joined by Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana to figure out how well you and Hikaru know each other.
Oh, okay.
So I have questions for you. So how many subscribers on YouTube and followers on Twitch does Hikaru have combined?
I saw something recently that he got 2 million on Twitch, so I saw the announcement somewhere. So going 2 million Twitch and 2.5 YouTube, I'll say 4.5 million total.
Wow, I think that's exactly correct.
Yeah. Actually, I don't check his channel, but I just remember seeing the announcement like 2 days ago or something. So some luck there.
How many times has Fabiano won the US championship?
Okay, so Fabiano, he didn't win in 2020, so at least there's no asterisk. He's won it 4 times. 4 times he's won the US championship.
Correct. When is Hikaru's birthday?
When is his birthday? I actually don't think I have any clue. I'm gonna say end of the year. I don't know why, but like I know Magnus is in December. I'm gonna go Hikaru in November, but I wouldn't even be able to guess the date, and probably the month is wrong, and I have no idea.
December 9th.
Oh, should have gone December.
What state was Fabiano born?
Also very easy. He was born. He was born in Florida, but more specifically Miami.
In what popular HBO series did Hikaru have a cameo in a few years back?
This one I know because I was also invited, but then they went with Hikaru. It was Billions.
At what age did Fabiano become a grandmaster?
Okay, became a grandmaster at 15. He definitely broke it. I'm trying to remember, was he 15 or was he 14? It was like 15 years, 87 days. For whatever reason, I mean, I don't know for sure, but for some reason 14 is not ringing a bell. So I think he was also 15, but like just a couple of days. So I think it was 15. If he was 14, I'd be surprised, but I'll go with 15.
I think it's 14 years, 11 months.
Ah, it wasn't even 15. Okay.
Everybody has days where they just don't feel up for it. You look in the mirror and you're not your full self. Neurogum, energy and focus. I know a guy who uses the gum to help get ready for his day. And it tastes good. That's the energy and focus this guy needs to go bring smiles to the faces of chess pieces everywhere. There he is. That's my guy. Always forward, never back. Neurogum, helping little pawns feel big since 2015.
Whether it's sunglasses outside, blue light glasses inside, or night driving lenses in the dark, Zenni has affordable eyewear for everyone at Zenni.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 2025 Speed Chess Championship. Magnus Carlsen versus Fabiano Caruana, an all-Team Liquid matchup. Danny, it's been a wild start to this one. Probably a start that I think Fabi would like to have back, but let's be honest, with the level that these players are showing, we've both realized it's not quite their peak. They can both improve on a lot of things. Magnus has been playing a little bit loose, a few blunders, and Fabi just hasn't found his footing as it's 3-1 with more 5+1 ahead.
Yeah, and the point is, that's good news, I think, for Fabi, even though he's trailing, that it hasn't been clinical by Magnus, right? It's been wild. It's been back and forth, both with internet connectivity issues, the kind they don't make a pill for, as well as the fact that the chess on the board has been just sporadic and odd. So let's see what happens. As we dive in here, I'm like everyone else waiting for Fabiano Caruana to get his first win in the SCC against Magnus in a long time. In fact, let's just throw out a diamond membership, maybe a poll in chat or something. 1-year diamond for whoever predicts correctly which game Fabi will get his first win. Because I'm going on record. It's happening, Amon. Whoever guesses the game gets a diamond membership. Even if we got to do multiple diamond memberships. Let's do it.
And it's what? So we're in game number 5 right now. Okay,
yeah, game 5. So predict the correct game, and we'll give you a diamond membership. That'll be fun. And hopefully like 1,000 people don't predict it, because then Eric might be like, oh, that's a little too many diamond memberships. But hey, it's the holiday season. Let's go.
Yeah, I think anytime you're in November, you always think ahead to the holidays. So you're clearly in the spirit. I'm going to go ahead and bet the exact opposite right now. I don't think that it's going to be this game. I don't know whether that's a bold prediction or not, but usually Black needs to play Fabi in this case for a move like f6, because if you don't include f6, it looks really tough, to deal with g3, h4, h5. Imagine that knight going back to h8. I mean, that is just terrible. So looking at that, I'm feeling like f6 has to be, there we go, immediately played, and it's just necessary in order to free those pieces.
But the weakness on e6 is now the big storyline, right? The problem with f6 is it's a pawn you sometimes wish you had back, and you wish it was guarding e6. So Magnus immediately relocating the knight, maybe coming to this side of the board, but you have to keep an eye on this e6 pawn now if you're Fabi.
Yep. And it almost resembles a little bit like, that classic French structure here. And that's not an opening that you'd really expect. This did start as a Sicilian, so I just want to mention that. But we're kind of back into what you'd see more in the French. Normally, you're all pretty happy to play against this as white, but the engine is reasonably happy, reasonably satisfied with what Fabi has got here, which is a little bit to my surprise as well.
Yeah, I mean, white has a teeny bit of an edge, but you're right. It's not that bad. I still, okay, I was going to say, the problem with these positions is the only way to get rid of e6 is to play e5, and then the d pawn becomes the biggest weakness after that. But you're kind of all in, because once you start with f6 to get you the space that you talked about, then you kind of got to deal with e6, and at that point, you kind of got to deal with d5. And so Black wants to open these positions and kind of, if you had your way, you'd just take everything off the board and be equal again. But this is going to get double-edged and very sharp with the d pawn and this diagonal here. I
think there's already a pawn maybe to be taken. Like, I'm pretty sure that bishop takes g6 there, followed by pawn takes e5, was going to win the d pawn by force. It's just you would have to give up your light squared bishop in the process. So maybe, not the most desirable. I could see maybe a slower approach here where you almost want to play bishop c2, bishop b3, knight d4, like just slowly build the game up. No rush to take that d pawn. Instead, just apply the pressure. So I like it for Magnus, but maybe I think the engine was reacting to the possibility of just winning that d pawn outright there.
If we want, we can show that line. And for those wondering why the pawn was hanging, it's because if you take on g6, you also have the ability to take c8 at the end of the variation. So just to quickly show it, at the end of something like this, maybe this isn't the exact move order because you could have taken f3. The point is there's this. Okay, so what is the exact move order? Because this would have been much worse.
Yeah, I think Black is incentivized to throw in rook takes c1, whereas, white is trying to make sure they don't allow knight takes on f3. So I was thinking takes on g6, and then takes on e5, and then take on c8, but it comes at the cost of those doubled f pawns on f3. So it's like, you see that trade-off there. It's not an easy decision to make, right?
Yeah, and definitely something that I think we can understand why Magnus didn't go for it. In fact, probably would have been better for Fabi. So instead we have the long-term isolated queen pawn feature where this pawn is weak, but it's not currently being attacked or targeted in any way. So Fabi is maintaining comfy equality.
Yeah, I'll say maybe equality. I don't know about comfy. It does feel like a position I'd maybe rather play for white, but not by a lot. And mainly because the knight on e5 has two moves which kind of bother me after, let's say, bishop takes d7, queen d7, which is knight c4 and knight g4. And if I could play b3 and h3, I think I might feel a little bit better. And so I'm imagining that white wants to, put this rook on d1 or queen on d2, but you always have to watch these knight jumps because the f2 pawn can be loose and the b2 pawn can be loose. And those two come under fire with knight c4 and knight g4, not to mention here, knight d3, big consideration.
Yeah, well, the rook goes to d1 to guard knight d3. Knight c4 would not be possible because the queen could just take it, just to point out the pin. I was going to say, do you worry about the a7 pawn at some point? And I guess Fabi answers that. Like, I'm going to back up the knight. That a7 pawn could have been stolen if you weren't careful, maybe.
Yep, agree. Agreed. That's the classic move that you're like, he's not going to do it. And then you allow it, and then he does it, and you're like, you're regretting everything. I've been there. The regret is never worth it.
So he goes to c6, won't regret losing that pawn. Now Magnus has to figure out how he wants to put pressure on d5. There's some different ways to do it, but the thing about an isolated pawn is, by definition, there's no other pawns around it, which it can push and advance, sometimes aggressively. So if Magnus loosens his control over the d4 square, Bobby might just push the pawn, and then it's extra guarded.
Yep, queen to c5, hits the d pawn, does come at the expense of dropping the b pawn, and so I guess the standard, or definitely the simplest move, is just to occupy the square in front of the isolated pawn. A tale as old as time. This is how you're always taught to play against it. If everything exchanges on d4, we're going to see the white queen back up the rook with queen d2 and just full pressure on the d5 pawn. Now, you're not winning the pawn because black can always defend with rook d8. You're never really going to win this pawn, but you can tie the pieces down so that it's always up to you when you want to relinquish that pressure and place it elsewhere, with the hope, I guess, that you can do that and maneuver more effectively than your opponent from side to side.
Yeah. Well said. We may end up getting exactly that type of major piece endgame. Okay, not quite yet. Bobby plays rook e8. I expect Magnus to deal with his back rank at some point here. You don't want tactics like that to hang in the air for too long.
I agree. Yeah, would have even thought about it right there, h3, for example. But queen e2 definitely with a similar idea. H3, bishop back to c3.
Yeah, now I think Bobby, he doesn't go for it. I was going to say, at some point, you have to decide if you want that major piece endgame, because the bishop, I think, is better than the knight if you're in a spot where you can target things on both sides of the board. So at the same time, what Fabi's saying is, if you move this bishop, I'm going to push this pawn, and it might be isolated, but it is passed. And here we go. We're going to see exactly that type of line.
Yeah, so f3, rook e6, or rook e5, I suppose. Maybe rook e5, so you can play rook d5.
I like that.
I'm assuming is going to be played. If rook takes e3, similar tactic that you mentioned earlier, where you can just take the rook on e3 because of the loose queen on d7. And definitely an achievement to get that pawn from d5 to d4. You have to be very happy as Fabi. Magnus is not, I wouldn't say he's concerned, but he's got, 37 seconds, and he knows that's an achievement for Fabi here.
d3, interesting move. I was going to say that I'm surprised Fabi didn't go for what you said. I think the rook just felt better on a light square on d5. Now the rook actually can't go to d6. So we'll see what happens here with the d3 pawn being targeted. Now that you play king f1, you will take this pawn the next move.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing, this rook e6, because it feels good to put the rook on a light square. So rook e6 makes sense because it's a light square. But the destination was actually the d file. And so you wanted to go on a dark square initially to end up on a light square permanently.
Yeah, there you go. The tale as old as time. You got to go off the road to get back on the other road. I don't even know if that's a tale, but all right. Bishop to g3 played. It's going to come to f2. And I'm liking Magnus's chances more and more. Although note that Fabi is up on time for the first time in time pressure that I think we've seen.
Yeah, it's actually really relinquished, though, because he had a minute and a half. Now it's evening up. We might see queen to c3 as opposed to queen takes d3, just as a method of maybe trying to protect and conserve the b pawn and knowing that you'll win the other pawn eventually.
Rook e2 kind of forces the issue. You're going to get queen takes d3, and at the end, black picks up the b2 pawn. That's exactly what we're seeing. It's funny. The black pieces are to be preferred because you will have a queenside pass pawn, but the bishop is to be preferred over the knight, any type of endgame where you've got pressure maybe on both sides of the board. So this is super balanced, and I still think anyone's game in time pressure.
Yeah, if that knight moves, there's either rook takes g7 or just bishop e5, and there's going to be problems.
Yeah, nice tactic. Nice spot there. The knight moves. You've got big time issues on e5. The bishop is immediately threatening to go to c3. Fabi says no.
Also hitting the a pawn, like rook d5, becomes more of a consideration. And I would say that a pawn is maybe less of a concern compared to the g pawn. Like, I do think you station the rook on maybe a7, and I think there's much more to play for Magnus. Not a lot, but I prefer it.
Yep. No, agreed. And this was kind of what we predicted. When the bishop and rook get together against targets on both sides of the board, good things happen. And so Magnus will be the one who's up a pawn. Will it be enough, right? The knight is typically a good defensive piece once you can get things to just one area of the board. Yeah, Magnus leaned in a little frustrated there with his own kind of choice.
Yeah, I think he could have preserved the pawns. Like, you could have played h4, g3 and just kind of got them to a safe square first. He hasn't done it in the best way, and as a result, I guess it's a bit more drawish, because if you're going to take, I was going to say, if you're going to take this pawn, you have to trade rooks, but he actually found a way to keep the rook on the board, so credit to Magnus.
He did, and now both sides are literally living off the increment, so nice to see, knock on wood, that right now, no further internet issues for Fabi, and I did knock on wood, so don't blame me for a commentator's curse. Seems to be good, doesn't seem to be having any issues, but will he defend? Will the knight be able to hold?
Yeah, this looks like a position that's quite comfortable. Ooh, knight d5. I guess you go into the rook endgame now, and that's a little bit easier.
Should be easier to hold, although I would not put it past Magnus to swindle one. He squeezes water out of stones for a living. He's been doing it for years. We'll see if he can. Eval bar.
G5. You're supposed to play rook to the 5th rank there in order to prevent this move, or maybe rook f4, but he just allows g5, and this is exactly that.
No, it was rook f7. Yeah, Magnus missed rook f7. That was the win. Now we're back to a draw.
Oh my goodness, what is going on in this one? It just shows you how tough these endgames are.
Yeah, seriously. It's really hard to even explain what
He's
move
got to abandon these, right?
Honestly.
Oh, the repetition. Oh no. That is going... I don't think he intended to repeat. I was thinking that at the very, very end, he might have considered running to e4 and d3, like going away and saying, okay, let me like try to find another way to win this. So I think he was really unhappy with the repetition. Fabi escaped with one in that one. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, he got away with one. He still hasn't gotten his first win, so whoever's predicting it to get that diamond membership I offered, I guess we're back to the drawing board. You were right, by the way. The idea of the king running away from the f-pawn was the winning plan for Magnus, but that was really tricky, and it shows you how tough those endgames are. We have the luxury of the engine and the eval bar, but that is just, it's so weird to see a single subtle thing change the evaluation altogether, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe the good thing for the players, Danny, is they don't know that. It would be much more annoying if I knew that I was oscillated between a draw and a win for about 10 moves there at the end of the game. Instead, maybe Magnus is slightly annoyed with the repetition, and that's about it, and they can just focus on the next game.
Yeah. All right, well, the next game is here. Fabiano looking for his first win of the match, his first win in a long time against Magnus in terms of the Speed Chess Championship. So I'm liking his chances here again. I like the opening again better than maybe some he's had before. Although that back rank is worrying me. Tactics are already happening.
Yeah, very, very concerning. The move b4 is, and based on the time, I'm wondering how much that is prep and how much it's just, hey, this looks annoying. Because for me, it's the second. It's the latter. This looks annoying. The knight on b1 cannot move to a3. You can't move to d2. The bishop can't really move from d2 because you have to guard queen e1 mate. So, yeah, to me, b4 is just one of those moves that's super annoying.
Although a3 is a nice response there. What a funny way to deal with that problem. You invite the capture, which of course would allow the knight to get out. And if you take here, I expect the knight would probably also just take back. And so if you do nothing, I will trade. We will get another set of rooks off the board. And my back rank problems are also less concerning with every piece that is coming off. So nice move by Fabi. I like a3.
Yeah, I wonder how much a4 is being considered here. It looks like a4, bishop takes d5, just wins a clear pawn on b4. But, okay, gives up a lot of light squares as well. So that could be like some weird practical decision. And, if the bishop moves, then maybe b3 and you keep it locked up. So, yeah, something I like about this a4 move.
Yeah, and Magnus agrees with you. He thinks it's a worthy pawn sack, although I see people in chat rooting for that diamond membership. They predicted maybe, although I don't think it is fair for everyone to get one if everyone just keeps predicting the next game. So I'm going to have to think about my own contest I just invented because I don't know how that's going to work. We might just have to give it to the first person who got it right after all. We'll see.
Yeah, there's There's no.
There's a reason smarter people than me come up with the contests that we do, and they don't give me the microphone that often. So
there you go. H5. So queen takes H5. Queen E4. I'm assuming.
Yep. That's got to be it.
And you're getting in there. It's not about forced mate. It's just, let's say you play F3 or something against that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Things are getting a little bit weird here. Pawn to F3.
You did this, like, now the queen just comes in because the queen doesn't guard it anymore, right?
Yeah,
and
queen D5 is being hit. So in that line, F3, queen E2, queen takes D5, right? There's a whole bishop hanging.
Check first. Oh, wait. Oh, hold on a second.
I'm looking at, either rook E8 or bishop H4. These ideas, like rook E8 takes the rook out from under attack. And yes, now we have that idea of queen D1, bishop H4, I also think is a key move there.
Yep.
And this just highlights that development. Like we talk about, most important thing in chess, get your pieces developed. This is what we're talking about. Rook A1, knight B1, bishop D2 are all in each other's way, and there's just no time to get everyone out.
This would be a fascinating line. We see that Fabiano is taking a moment to consider how he wants to deal with this H5 move, a very tricky little approach. Probably the best thing to do is just to back up the queen and not take that pawn, but an interesting game ahead if Fabi decides he's going to go for it and allow this tricky stuff with queen E4.
Yeah, but you're still running into queen D1, queen E4, F3, queen D3, and you just feel like none of your pieces are where they should be for white. So this is why I thought it was a decent practical attempt, and it's a blitz game. After all, Magnus really understands that. I think with his decisions, you can also just toss that H pawn up the board further, H4, H3. I just think that the engine is obviously liking white here with the material, but clearly, Danny, there's a lot of compensation that Fabi, with a minute and a half think there, just tried to get to the bottom of.
Yeah, and he did. He took a minute and a half, as you said, went down big time on the clock. Magnus probably goes for this queen E4 idea anyway, or your move H4. Feels like queen E4 first. If you can induce F3, that's a move that white might want back down the road. So I'm still liking queen E4. Magnus is really slowing down before he does it. What else could he be considering? The other idea, instead of the queen in front, is the queen behind. And you put the queen on C6 and make a battery against the light squares, which is also something you might be thinking about. If queen C6, F3, you still have H4 and H3 as a means to kind of undermine the pawn chain.
Yep. There's also rook A6 to E6. Like, same idea we've seen in a couple of games so far. And maybe you kind of lead in with the rook first and use, in conjunction with maybe H4, H3. So I can understand pausing here because there's a lot of different ways to do this. You can go queen in front, queen behind. You can go rook in front, rook behind. And you could just push this H pawn as well.
Yeah. Okay, fair. Yeah, a lot to consider. The other advantage, of course, of keeping the queen on C6 is that you keep guarding the A pawn if you're worried about that. That's the other thing Fabi might be considering if the variation is right. So a fun
you don't
position.
Have to worry. You don't have to worry about knight A3 because, you kind of do get developed there. But I could see positions where Magnus just says, "Okay, play knight A3, you get developed," but you're just on the wrong side of the board. The knight takes a while to get back in, and he does start with H4. Obviously, H3 had to be the reaction. I think there's absolutely no way you could have allowed black to play H3. And now, what did he want this for? Is it that queen E4, F3, maybe the dark squares are a bit weaker?
Yep. Or does he want queen to C6 again, similarly with the same kind of forced response? But I'm liking your rook A6 idea more and more. Okay, he does go for queen C6. I think the rook having a long-term future, keep an eye there, because F3 is forced. G2 is a permanent weakness because of this H pawn anchoring it. So I'm going to use the word alpha zero, Amon. This feels like the kind of game you could see from the way the long-term pawn sacrifices were being played in some of those epic games that we saw for the first time by Alpha Zero against Stockfish long ago. It really does feel that way. This is such a fascinating way for Magnus to play the position down a pawn, but with just long-term pressure all over the board.
Yeah, I know that this is in White's favor, and I'll be the first to hand Fabi a lot of credit for surviving this, but it looks like a tough task to play the top moves every single move here. Good luck to him. Rook E8, I'm only assuming here.
And it's funny because here we are as commentators just openly disagreeing with the evaluation bar, but I feel right about that. I think, remember, the eval is often only as good as the computer analyzing it. You have local web browser stuff, you have deep engine analysis, and I'm not saying with perfect play White isn't better. And by the way, this was a very good move by Fabi. I think knight to D2 coming next is key, but I just love Black's compensation here, and I think this pressure is going to be tough. Although, look at the clock. He's getting himself in time pressure, speaking of pressure.
This is how you do it. Maybe you don't find every single best move, but you find every single best move up to a point, and then hopefully by that point, Magnus has invested so much time that it becomes more manageable after that. Queen E6 there, hitting the bishop, knight D2, happy to give it up and win the bishop on C4. So I think that was the right idea. And this move right here, if rook takes, I think he's trying to switch over and say queen to E6. You don't have rook E1 anymore. And meanwhile, pawn takes, of course, queen takes C3.
Yeah, I love this idea. I'm not sure if it wins material. The queen goes to E6. The bishop moves to F4. I think that's the only move because you can't really guard it with the knight. What is next for Black there is the question. But Magnus is all in on whatever compensation he has to generate. The first pawn sacrifice was more than 10 moves ago, and now he's sacrificing another one.
I wonder if the idea is queen E6, bishop F4, like queen F5, and then he's trying to play rook E2. And then for White, you might have to react to that with bishop E5, like just something where you kind of offer a pawn almost to stop the rook E2 idea. We're about to see some variations on the board. Let's see.
You called that exact variation. White has to play bishop E5. You really cannot afford to allow rook E2. So
and you could have rook A5 as well, like bishop E5, rook A5. You continue to throw moves in, but yeah, I thought initially pawn takes was the simplest.
Okay, Fabi is up a pawn, but Black's pressure is still here. Oh, wait, is Black up? White's up two pawns.
Yeah, up two feels like maybe one, but I think Fabi deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with this game here. Takes, followed by knight E4. Yeah, it's not quite good enough, but maybe knight F1.
Knight F1, very nice.
Yeah.
Get rid of the G-pawn. Only Fabiano can win this position. Will he get his first dub against Magnus Carlsen in the Speed Chess Championship? He does. Oh my God. As I said it, Magnus just throws in the towel and we have a winner. All right, team, I need you to find the first person who predicted this game, even though it feels like cheating. We're going to give that person a 1-year diamond membership because I'm feeling generous. Forget these 1-month diamond memberships, 1 year.
Wow. That
in celebration of Fabiano Caruana getting his first win against Magnus in a very long time in the SCC.
Yeah, look, it did happen by time there, but that's the one moment where, even though it ended by a flag, I'll be the first to say, like, I don't think you need to feel bad at all. First of all, Fabi's had his own issues with flagging in this match, but I'll also say that was an incredible series of moves, only moves. Like, that was extremely accurate and high-level chess because Magnus, I think he objectively played a phenomenal kind of sacrifice, practical play, and Fabi just navigated it, almost engine-like. Like, he had to play those best moves to emerge on top, and he did. So he definitely earned and deserved that full point.
Yeah. And apologies, I didn't even realize it was a flag. I thought Magnus had thrown in the towel, but the evaluation was high enough. White was up 2 pawns. Only Fabiano could win, so he should not feel bad at all. Flag or resign. He gets his first victory against Magnus in a long time. And hey, we have a match here. Despite how awkward this day has been, Amon, and despite how tough of a start it was for Fabi, he's down 1 game right now. And who knows, maybe he levels it up before we go to the break.
Yeah, exactly right. Look at that match clock, top left of your screen, 5+1 ticking down. Extremely likely, almost guaranteed that this will be the final game, which means you're absolutely right. We could be at 3.5. And I think regardless, Fabi, even if he draws here, I think he's doing quite well, not just in the match in general, but considering how he's gotten here, the circumstances thus far. That was a really nice game for him to bounce back and kind of typical Fabiano style. Like, He challenges himself, puts himself in a position that is risky, but if he finds those best moves and he trusts himself too, then look what happens.
Yeah. No, he's willing to take on those types of positions, highly accurate as a chess player, and also kind of likes those technical games where he has to find the best move. I think he thrives in a lot of those positions with accurate calculation being required, whether pushing or defending. And so that was good stuff. And here we go with, all right, still just a very equal looking game. Funny Italian that we had here. Now here Magnus is just going to go for f4 and try to use the f file, but watch c2 first.
Yeah, the thing about this position is you kind of have to play f4 as white because black's about to play f5, and it doesn't really look like a good position there. Here you're actually conceding the e5 square, but because black has a light squared bishop, there's no way that black sort of permanently ever controls e5 because, yeah, like for example, knight f3 here, you're always covering that square. There's no amount of like, you could take that knight, put it on d7, and the white knight would reroute to also hit e5. There's no way that Fabi controls that square. So I think that's why Magnus is feeling, comfortable here, but a little bit annoying having to guard c2, but you can throw it right back at him with knight b5 and hit the c7 pawn. For now, you're highlighting this pin is quite annoying to deal with.
Yeah, I was just showing that it is an irritating pin, especially if you don't take care of it. But already knight d4 helps because at least now you could move the rook or queen off in the next move if you needed to. Knight d4, kind of a dual-purpose move. It also protects c2 so that if you want, you can get back to doubling the rooks, the plan you kind of started when you played f4 long ago to open the file. So I think the rook could move here. The queen could move to get off the pin. Magnus a little better and kind of taking a moment to see what choice he wants to make.
Yep. Bishop to d7, looking to play rook a8 to e8 almost certainly. You can strengthen the pawns with b6 on the queen side, but you may also want to reserve those queenside pawns for perhaps a move like c6 because the b5 square is ready to be occupied by Magnus, one of those knights. And yeah, you highlight sliding that queen over makes a lot of sense. Rook h4 to follow. That's immediately a pretty high quality threat.
Well, doubles the rooks, just like we said, and a diamond membership is going to Sean Chess, just like we said. Wait, is that Staff? If that's Sean, that he's not getting a diamond membership. We're giving it to someone else. Sorry, Sean. You don't need it. Okay, no. Sean, you don't get a diamond membership. Everyone shame Sean. He doesn't get a diamond membership. Someone else gets it.
Great stuff by Sean.
What is going on here?
Not a good look for the chat, Danny, to be, you got the staff quicker than the whole chat there.
I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. All right, queen to f2 played. The computer loves white because Magnus is threatening to take f7. Like that's a problem. You're hitting both the knight and the pawn. Knight takes c2 was just not a good idea by Fabi.
I mean, it's kind of a one mover, but if you look at the previous move, c5, it's also not a great looking move after knight b5. Even if there was no pawn to win, the pieces are, they don't seem to be in their best positions, almost +3 here. So this is highly concerning because where's the knight going to go? I'm assuming we're about to see knight d4 just for like lack of, anything else. But if you play knight d4, rook takes on f7. I'm trying to find a way to keep it playable. Maybe like g6 after rook takes f7, but it's very, very shaky.
I mean, I think we are definitely going to see this being the last game, but it got so bad so fast. I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if Fabi resigned and we got one more 5-minute game. You see him shaking his head. Okay, we're a few seconds away. Okay, that's not going to happen. But there was a moment there where you see Fabi clearly dejected. I thought we might actually get one of those really rare last second games in. But no, Fabi lets the time run out, and I think he will lose this one and be down by 2 games heading into the 3-minute portion.
Yeah, at f7 hanging here and the c2 knight, I actually don't see anything else. So rook takes f7. I guess we'll see g6 or I guess g5, but g6 seems to make more sense. You could also move the rook.
We trade everything. But I think if you take d4 and then take everything on f8, the king and pawn ending is just lost. I think this is that resignable that fast. It's Because
That's
the
true.
problem with F7 falling, everybody, it wasn't just the pawn, it's the back rank threats. And so if you play G6, everything gets traded in a lost king and pawn ending, which for these guys is just, resign already.
I'm assuming that that's correct, but I'm not 100% sure. And honestly, as white, you have to be pretty sure before you go all the way
That's
into
fair.
that. But I know what you mean. That on the
Yeah.
side, that's the variation I want to calculate. When I'm in the game, I'm like, oh no, I hate the pressure of being correct about that. So I think he's gone for a different line, Fabi. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're probably looking to just double rooks on the 7th here, if you can, like rook c7 or rook e7. It looks pretty good.
E5 opens up. The queen keeps an eye on the G7 pawn, which is irritating AF, irritating as Fabi, the kids like to say. This is
I've met those kids.
Yeah, you've never heard irritating AF, which refers to as Fabi?
No, I must have been kids around your area.
Yeah, weird kids. All right, Queen G6 is played, and I think your idea of moving the rook, I don't know if it's E7 or C7, looks good. Although if you did come down, Fabi might just give up the queen for 2 rooks and try to hold that way. Not to say you can't hold, but that might be what he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking if there's any, like, you could play. I was thinking about D6, but just unnecessary. I don't know. Rook E7 with the idea of the other rook coming to F7. Not to mention rook F3, rook G3 looks really, really nice. And yeah, you also have like queen E6. Maybe take with the pawn. Like I'm starting to feel so many moves work. D6, yeah, all looks good.
Your idea of D6, I think, is great. Note, everybody, that the queen can't take. That's checkmate. And if the rook takes, if you don't have anything else, you could even just take G7, and then when the queen moves, you pick back up your rook on D6. So, okay, Magnus plays a good old-fashioned family fun, grinded out move. He's just going to go to G3. But I think your idea of D6 did work.
So rook G3, rook takes E7, queen B8. There is queen E8, which... let's say ends the fun, because almost looks like that might win straight away, but I suspect D6 looks pretty good here.
Yep, Magnus likes it too.
Maybe take with the queen, and yeah, you have that like nice. I guess queen E7 or pawn E7. It all looks pretty winning, so I think Magnus is showing that with his relaxed posture here. Yeah, and it's actually just going to be a resignation. I don't know what went wrong in that one for Fabi, but it really was just a one mover, right? That knight takes C2 was way too ambitious, and queen F2 as a reaction. The game was effectively over from there.
Yeah, it really was. It was a one move blunder. Knight takes C2. I mean, your point though, C5, the move before, was not a good idea to invite the knight to B5 and weaken D6. But anyway, you and I are analyzing it in our head. We shouldn't do that because the players are on camera and no one else can see the board. So Team Liquid is winning and losing this match. Like, what a timeline.
We're in shock. What is it? 4.5 to 2.5. 2-point deficit. Our pre-match prediction model, I think, had a little bit more than that. And all things considered, Fabi is on the board with a win, so he can feel good about that. It was a really high-quality win as well, but Magnus kind of taking that momentum going into the break. So something for both players to be happy about. And Danny, I still want to say, I don't think we've seen kind of the best chess from both just yet. It feels like we're ramping up and improving as the match goes on.
Couldn't agree more. The best chess hopefully yet to be played, and we know there'll be some amazing chess in London. Who will be there? Unfortunately for that graphic, it is impossible for both Magnus and Fabiano to be competing in London, although they might both be there. Depending on who loses, maybe we'll bring the other one in or bring the loser in for commentary. But get your tickets, use the command TIX, join us in London. I hear they're selling out faster than we think, and I'm not just saying that. It's been amazing, and I think the appetite for live chess events is strong in the world, and so hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah, exactly. The live finals is what this is all about, and now that we're at the end of this 5+1 segment, we're jumping into a new time control, but of course after we take a break. So the 3+1, Danny, is up ahead between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana in the Speed Chess Championship. Don't go anywhere.
time in esports World Cup history. The absolute best chess players in the world.
EWC is the biggest tournament in my calendar this year.
The two highest rated chess players in the world battling it out at EWC.
It's always fun to see Magnus act like a little child when he loses a game instead of accepting defeat humbly.
I want to win everything that's in front of me.
GG!
I got my bow and arrow ready. I've shot one falcon. I want to shoot one more.
Magnus Carlsen takes the victory, world #1, and now esports World Cup champion.
It's been unlike anything that I've seen. I really hope that this is a big part of the future.
Magnus Carlsen, a special world champion. I met him at his teenage years. I remember very vividly when Simon Agdestein, at that time the #1 Norwegian player, very nice personality himself, very rounded. And I was watching a game in Benidorm, some blitzing, it was a rapid event, and I was looking, and then next to me, Agdestein comes and he just whispers in my ear that, Magnus Carlsen, remember this name, a very talented boy. He's going to become a world champion. So this I remember very well. And then I had experience sitting next to him in tournaments. I'm playing in the A group, he's playing in the B group, drinking his orange juice, eating his walnuts and different things, seeing his family being extremely supportive, a very kind, nice kid, but he was not very social, I must say. And then later on, I was already kind of going to my final part of my career competitiveness when he was really raising. I mean, he became world champion in 2013, and I retired from competitive chess in 2014. But I was following, of course, in those years, how he was improving, how he was playing, how he was training. I got these informations that he was a player who was really looking and reading a lot of predecessors, old books, reading, trying to understand the essence of chess. And it was so beautiful to see while Kasparov brought all the freshness, the digital things, using the databases, using engines and all this, seeing Magnus Carlsen, the new generation who really born into this digital world, using books and reading books and trying to understand details. And I could see in his play that maybe he had some good preparation of openings, but he was more focusing on the middle game. He had endless energy playing out drawish endgames and later on winning them. I mean, he has like endless number of endgames. I'm sure everybody knows it, that he's a big grinder. And it's not that he wants to say, okay, I'm just better than anybody. Probably he thinks that way, and it's true. But he just loves the game. He just loves the game to be played out until the very end. He doesn't care whether it's 3 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. He has this incredible amount of curiosity for the game. And I think this is what gave him all the success, what he reached, and I hope there is a lot of success to come for him more. And well, I'm also very happy for him that he's having a family, starting out, becoming a father soon. And he's great for chess. He's a very active and very outspoken and cool, sportive personality of the chess world.
Can you handle it? Where grandmasters don't just move pieces, they cast spells.
Oh boy, didn't see that one coming.
Victory doesn't come easy.
Wait, queen time?
Oh shoot, I just lost the piece.
Yeah, but I got no mana.
This isn't your classic chessboard.
The thing about the imposter is that if you swap it like...
not just a game, it's a battleground of minds.
Let's have some fun, you know? Let's have some fun.
When the greatest minds meet magic, anything can happen. On Chess, cast that spell, play for free.
What's up, everybody? I'm here on behalf of one of our newest partners, Neuro. You may have known them before as Neuro Gum, but they make more than just gum now, even though this is the stuff that I actually personally really love and have been using for a hot minute. Natural caffeine, B vitamins, theanine, stuff that is good for you when you're looking to avoid that second cup of coffee. Now they also have Neuro Mints for calm and clarity. Also only natural ingredients. They use GABA, vitamin D, all kinds of good stuff that you like putting in your body if you're looking for natural ways to bring up your energy and maybe calm down and get that clarity you need. Toward the end of the day, there's sleep and recharge. There's all kinds of small mint packets. But like I said, I really do love the Energy and Focus Gum. I use it in the afternoon. Pop one. Sometimes I really need that extra energy. Either way, hope you give them a chance. Use the command Neuro if you happen to be watching this during one of our shows. Otherwise, go to neurogum.com. Check them out today on behalf of Chess, and we'll see you around on Chess.com.
Back, everyone, to the Speed Chess Championship, the quarterfinal matchup between Fabiano Caruana and, of course, Magnus Carlsen, both representing Team Liquid. Fabi with I want to say a little bit of a comeback based on the rocky start to this matchup. I said before we went to the break that I don't think we have seen the best chess from either one of these players so far, which means quite literally the best is yet to come. We see both of the players here. They look ready to go, and we are ready to go into a new section, 3+1. So obviously a lot faster, shaving 2 minutes off the clock for each. I can't say that I've noticed time being a real significant factor for either one of the players. So I think both are probably just excited to get into that time control that they're most familiar with, that they've certainly played a lot more. We're jumping into a Sicilian, and knight takes c6, bc6, by Magnus Carlsen with the black piece. Sort of a Taimanov that we have here after a4. I'm imagining that, you know, allowing a5 is quite the decision. Usually you go for it, but bishop b4 is an idea that black has to chase down the a pawn. So looking like a pretty nice idea from Fabi. Maybe it needs more support though with you know, bishop d2, so that bishop b4 is not that strong.
All right. Well opened in the 3-1 segment, sir.
You know, it's a new segment for us all. Just bringing us in, Danny. You know me, ever the monologuer.
Ever the monologuer. Wow. Never.
They call me a monologuer. Is that what you would say there, Danny?
Monologuer. There you go. Well, we've got you monologued well, right? You described exactly what the stakes are, and with the faster time control, 2 minutes less to start each game for both players. Looks like we're already in time pressure. Not quite, but here goes Fabi with a plan to bring the knight over to the king side. I like White's chances in this first game. I kind of prefer White here.
Yeah, the thing about White is, I guess it's comfortable to know you have that plan. A5, you know, maybe b4, but from Black's perspective, you don't have to allow it. Now, c5 is quite drastic. I was wondering maybe like knight d7, and then maybe if b4, perhaps then c5, because you kind of have some tension to play for. Here, you're playing c5 without maybe b4, and it gives an extra opportunity to Fabi to play c4. It seems like, let's say, a bad move. You know, you're blocking in your own bishop, but guess what? You're highlighting, going straight there. Knight to c3, knight to d5, and that knight is going to get there before the knight on f6 ever makes it to the d4 square.
I was going to say, that's exactly the point, is that in order to get to d4, the square that is begging for a piece to occupy it, you are a long journey away. But White is very quickly popping into the d5 square. So this is why White's edge exists. And then, okay, but going for this f4 square is a nice little sort of counter, not quite outpost. Still White is to be preferred, though.
Yeah, I'm thinking no matter how the recapture is done here, that, you know, likely this bishop wants to make the appearance on d6. However, if e takes, you would have to watch out for the h7. H7 pawn, I think c takes makes more sense, because with the a pawn on a5, there's no way to sort of permanently guard the c pawn.
Yeah, highlighting, as you said it, that b pawn is a backward pawn. That a5 pawn kind of dominates both of them on the a and b files. So White's edge there is very real. You're going to bring another rook over. You might take on d3, you might not. If you don't, I can back it up to f1 and then kick your pony down the road. So I actually think that Fabi is in control here. He already got his first win, so no more diamond memberships. Again, I'm glad we all shamed Sean Chess, but shout out to the member that did actually win the 1-year diamond membership. Not our staff member, Sean.
Yeah, we got the right person, their membership eventually. Magnus, I'm just going to say it, he's just suffering. This is not a good position. I was wondering whether the rook should have moved. My preference probably would have been on the previous move to play like rook d1 or something, so that I could react to queen g6 with bishop back to f1. I'm not a fan of the opposite bishops, and what we're seeing here might still be in White's favor, Danny, but really do not think that Fabi maximized.
I totally agree. And f3 is just such a nice practical shot. Note that you don't want to take with the queen because you lose e5, so you have to take with the pawn to maintain your edge. And yes, White is better, right? We agree with the computer there, but now you've got an open king. The long-term feature of the opposite bishops could get dangerous if you mess up and the dark squares become a problem. So I like Fabi, but I think that Magnus found the best way to mix this up. Wow. Look at that.
I think there was basically, if you can achieve f4, it should be quite good. There's queen e3, queen g3 next. This is highly concerning, probably objectively just lost straight up. F4 really connects the pawns. So it's possible this is actually just a lot better than I gave it credit for, which again speaks to Fabi just kind of surgically approaching the position, because pawns coming to d6, like this is looking phenomenal.
Yeah. And that rook a3, well timed. To your point, you could play d6 now. You could wait on d6. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
Okay, you go for it, and maybe getting the bishop off of a5 is nice because then it frees your rook to move over. So perhaps d6 now was exactly what the doctor ordered. Magnus is probably considering whether he should. I was going to say he's considering whether he's just going to give up the bishop. That's like how bad the position is.
It's such a brutal spot to be in because you can't play bishop b8 because the reality is, Danny, you're going to have to sack eventually. So he gets it out of the way, but it's clearly annoying. Like, this is not what he wanted to do. And the king now has the f1 square. I know it doesn't seem like it matters, but it allows for rook f3 to happen easier.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're just piling up on this f pawn. So let's see what he can do.
A little bit of a tickle there from Magnus, but okay, now I think he'll offer the queen trade on e1 the next time he gets it, indeed. Because if you take b2, okay, well, I assumed it was just like mate. I said I was about to say if you take b2, you're going to lose, but okay, he does it anyway.
I mean, he will definitely lose here, but maybe not by force. Let's say rook f8 and queen f6, like something like this. But the reality is, if everything gets traded, bishop d5, bishop takes b7, bishop takes a6 will win.
Yeah, the extra piece is exactly what you need, and the pawns already being stuck to light squares just makes your job easy. So bishop d5. Fabi is on path to getting his second win. If you take a5, you're going to get mated on the light squares with queen e8 and bishop e4. So Magnus really is just busted here, and okay, I think this is great. We still have a close match. Okay, well, Magnus is not presiding.
There's no real threats because the squares are all covered, like that long diagonal checks, that they're all covered by the bishop. And I understand why he's playing on here, but okay, that should probably seal it because the queen h6 and bishop d5, and that is honestly a pretty nice game, but it was much more, to my eyes, it was much more of a kind of Magnus implosion than it was a Fabiano, masterclass. Fabi's had some really high quality games, and he certainly played very well there. But I thought that Magnus really just got one of his worst positions of the match.
Yeah, agreed. But Fabi gets his second victory against Magnus in the match. If you're just tuning in, it was the first victory he got was the first time he had won in a long time. But he's showing that it wasn't just a token dub he was after. He's keeping the thing close. He's only down a game. Again, it feels like it's been such a tough day for Fabiano, but this is still a very close match. And if you remember our pre-match predictions, Amon, we were predicting in our model that Bullet is basically a coin flip between these two guys. I don't know if that'll play out. We'll see. But if Fabi can keep this close, then anything can happen.
And I'm just curious if, like, the engine was jumping there. Was there a queen a5 moment?
We have to analyze that real quick. Because there was
assuming
not,
on the board. Like, these guys probably know the opening, but I think it was it knight e4?
Well, already here, bishop d3 was the best move from the computer, not knight e4. But after knight e4, you're right. It was queen a5 instead of knight to g6 that Fabiano missed, just straight up winning the e5 pawn.
Yeah, and also pinning the knight at the end. Yeah, and so maybe that was missed as a detail, but just funny to see. We've said a few times it hasn't been the highest quality match between them, and just another moment seeing that here, both missing queen a5, which that absolutely turns the entire opening around.
Yeah, wild. I haven't seen these two guys have mutual blind spots. Again, if you're just tuning in, earlier in the match, there was a move by Magnus, king e7, that walked into a knight fork. Both sides blundering, but also, again, both sides missing the same thing. So it's just not something we're used to seeing with these guys. And here, maybe Fabi needs to realize and remember that Magnus is capable of blundering because he's given him chances today, Amon, both the king e7 blunder I'm referring to and then right there.
Yep, completely agree. If you can get developed with the right tempo, I mean, queen e5 certainly comes to mind. Queen f5, bishop d3 is a tempo. I don't know. I mean, there is bishop to e4 there, but it does look like queen e5 makes more sense. You want to play f6 next to repel the bishop on g5 and maybe start going after this pawn on d6. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see some setup involving pawn to f3 for white and maybe long castle. That seems to be correct. I definitely like pawn on f3. It deals with the light squared bishop on the diagonal. It stops knight g4. So, also follows that general principle. If you have two bishops, your opponent has one bishop, your pawns generally do well on the same color as that bishop. So we see c4 here. Won't be surprised to see f3, b3, light squares. And just in general, I'm seeing that Magnus, he's starting to, he's not really loving the way that he's played maybe this game, but maybe it's starting to catch up to him that he's just not playing his best.
Well, look at this. Another blunder from Magnus Carlsen and another miss by Fabiano. We don't even have to highlight what it was because the computer did it for us. Bishop takes g2 was winning on the spot right there for Fabiano. We have seen more one-move blunders. I'm going to back up and show it. We have seen more one-move tactical blunders by these guys than I remember seeing ever in the last match they played. Bishop takes g2, forces white to capture because you're attacking the rook. And the whole idea, everybody, is that d3 is now free, meaning it's safe for the knight to hop in, give a check, and after the fork, you win the bishop on f4. So, wow, like you just don't see these types of one-move gaffes from these guys, and we've seen multiple today.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, it's more common that we see players not take advantage of a Magnus blunder than we see a Magnus blunder, I will say. Magnus does from time to time, make some mistakes, but missing those opportunities, it hurts so much because he doesn't usually offer so many. This is a match where Fabi has missed so many chances. He's just not looking for them. That's the thing. You tell Fabi, hey, black to move, half a second, he's playing bishop takes g2, but he's just not expecting that the moment is there.
I'm backing up again because the computer says a5 is a horrible move, but not because white is winning on the spot, but because black missed a move before. The computer loved playing just e5 for black, just making the pawn chain great again and keeping the center together. So this was that the computer thought black should do to maintain a big advantage. And so,
and what
again,
if you go back further than that? Even further than that, because after, what was it? Takes, and then b4, king f7, was it?
Yeah, I think this was okay from Fabi. I guess here you're right. G5 was also possible. G5
but I like your e5. That makes sense. It actually makes more sense than g5. So I'm with you, Danny. That's a shocking. I don't know. It's an easy move, right? All things considered, gets king e6 and bishop d5. But I will say, in the live position, Magnus has been sort of talking to himself on the camera. He's, I wouldn't say he's fallen for something, but definitely he didn't have a way, I think, to keep all his pawns defended. And so Fabi has earned that D pawn. Fabi's kind of in the driver's seat at the moment.
Agreed. He is in the driver's seat, still pushing. We're still seeing a lot of blue arrows from the recommendation of the computer. Apparently, you really need to stop the move rook a7 for white. Fabi does find that one and doesn't allow Magnus rook a7.
Yeah, e5 is, now it's happening, right? Pawn to e5, you can't exist without that move. If b6 happens, where does this rook find shelter? Rook c6, there's bishop b5. So now I start to get concerned about the move pawn to b6. And I'm wondering, do we have to, okay, there you go. Do we have to play rook a7 and rook a8?
Well, what's funny is the computer still loves black position because as pretty as this all looks, it's not actually threatening to queen. Rook a7 is potentially a threat, but black still has the long-term advantage, everybody, with these pawns, and you even have bishop e6 maybe to defend. No, now c6. Oh my gosh, it's turning around.
Bishop e6, c6, rook takes pawn, c7 maybe, and c6 first. Look at this find. He's pre-moving the tactic.
And Fabi leaning in, frustrated there with what in the bleep just happened. Somehow Magnus Carlsen steals victory from the jaws of defeat. Not over yet, but this is his game to win now.
That was a really, really nice tactic. And now the king being separated. Okay, not ideal. Fabi's desperately looking for that fortress if he can find it.
Yeah. And not a lot of time, though, so this is not a foregone conclusion. Note that everybody protects everybody here, everybody. The rook protects the pawn protects the pawn protects the rook. So this is actually not so simple. Okay, but now that Magnus has won the h-pawn, it's, yeah, okay, never mind. False alarm.
Now I
You're not
will
holding a
say
draw.
it's gotten simple, but there were moments there that I think those pawns could have advanced. Wasn't flawless technique. I think that we're starting to see Magnus not quite as confident that we've seen him. He's definitely missing some things this match, and he can queen. There's going to be another queen, and now he's got to convert this all over again. But should be a win, but we say that cautiously.
It is definitely a win, a theoretical one, but it's not as easy as you think, especially when you don't have a lot of time on the clock. So
not at all.
Yeah, this is, and in fact, that e-pawn is kind of irritatingly placed in the middle of the board, because often you want to centralize your queen and flex against the rook. And as I'm just kind of thinking through this, it's hard for me to see the ideal setup for white. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not that clear to me. It feels like you need a position where you kind of separate the king from the pawn, like almost the queen on the d file or the f file with the king cut off. And then, like, if the queen could check from the other side here, it would almost be ideal. Yes, sort of like this, actually. This is the ideal position that I wanted.
Well, and Magnus has kind of muttered to himself a couple times with a bit of like what am I supposed to do here? You have to be very careful. Note that the king has a bunch of landmine squares. If you step forward in the wrong square, there's all kinds of weird stalemate stuff. But he does it. He figures out how to get the king behind the blockade on the second rank.
There's been progress made, clear progress. Look at that. Wins the pawn, and this is what we call elementary. But Magnus, to some degree, I want to say I think he pretty much just solved that on the fly there. And that's a table-based win, but that's not something you study specifically. I'd be surprised if he's looked at exactly that. A lot of similar positions, but that's quite impressive.
He just missed queen d1, queen d5, forking the king and rook. But okay, he's got it anyway with queen b1. And wow, it was funny. Anyone who's following on Chess.com, you would have seen that at some point the evaluation changed to a table-based win in the move list, which is fascinating. But I agree with Amon. I don't think Magnus would have ever looked at that position. I think he just did what Magnus Carlsen does, which is find the best chess moves on his own.
Yeah, and he was kind of struggling with himself there, muttering to himself, frustrated a little bit, but he overcame, right? That was just not a position he was willing to let go. When you think about how close the match has been, getting that full point, extracting the full point there is really meaningful, and that's what the best players do.
Yeah, he figured that out. It's so funny in games like that. Like the chess player in me wants to go back and just analyze that whole game and not just see exactly what the table base suggests as the most accurate, but okay. We don't have the time. We don't have the time to do that as commentators. We are on to the next battle, and Magnus Carlsen has a 2-game lead.
He has a 2-game lead, and he's playing, for all intents and purposes, the French, which is a little bit surprising, but clearly we're still in the testing phase of openings and different positions. Obviously, he's done pretty well for himself here because he's also, I think, going to find a position that the queens exchange in, and there's just not enough time to, launch a full-blown attack with f5.
Yeah, and if the queens come off the board, you're always in a better spot as black in these positions where you lack the space. I think it's solid enough, and that b4 pawn is actually pretty good. Keeps the c pawn backward, and with development, you might even bring some pieces to the c file. So I think Magnus is okay in this French.
Yeah, I think it's a battle of whether that b pawn is a weakness or not. And, if the bishop exchanges on d3, the other thing is you might consider just playing pawn takes on d3. Then the a file stays closed due to the knight. You can kind of play rook c1. All in all, if it becomes like sort of a pure endgame, I think that Magnus is completely fine. Really no issues. You can bring the f8 rook over. And meanwhile, I guess if nothing is happening, there's no danger, Fabi could still play for g4 and f5, which maybe is why we see f6.
Yeah, Yeah, Magnus wants to undermine the center. As we talk about in the French, when you play f6, e6 becomes the next target. Interesting. Fabi, will he play rook e1 right away? Is there something better?
Yeah, rook e1 looks pretty good to me. With the idea like bishop takes d3, pawn takes d3, so that you control this e4 square and you don't leave it up for grabs.
No, that's a really key point. And counterintuitive a little bit to maybe people who don't play on the white side of a classical French, but that's a pretty common recapture rather than with a piece because of the controls that you get to this key. Ooh, you take a8 first. Is he winning the exchange? And then black might have a bunch of compensation, though, if you keep the bishop, and here comes the e4 square. I don't even know if I like this for white. That's, like, super dangerous.
I agree. The knight's coming to e4, the rook's coming to c8. There's a lot of great compensation here. So not sure if something like that is worth it, especially when you think about pawn takes on d3. The reason he didn't like it there is because he'd already played knight b6. So it would have allowed rook down to a2, and that was not part of his agreement, right? He played this to win the exchange, so let's see how he does.
Well, Magnus goes for the exchange, sacrifice. G5 instead of knight e4 check. I know the computer is giving a little bit of missed wins here and there, but I think black's compensation is very real in this game. And that light square bishop and the weak light squares, e4 and c2. I don't know. I mean, I think black's compensation is decent here.
So it's decent, but I'm looking at rook a1, a7. That looks really frustrating. And also rook g1 to g7. So it's like, and notice the rook cannot use c8. The knight on b6 is incredibly annoying. So even though it looks like the c2 pawn is loose, there's no rook c8. So I'm not buying it. Knight e4 is a singular check. Now just play king e3. I'm looking at rook a1, rook a7. And yeah, I just think take control of those two open files. I don't believe in Magnus's position.
Okay. All right. Hey, I love learning lessons courtesy of my grandmaster commentary partner. That's interesting. And I will also say this, as you described that, just how key the actual placements of the pieces are right here, right now, you start to realize this is one of those positions Fabi really likes, right? We talked about the one earlier where he defended against Magnus's compensation, finding accurate and technical moves is kind of his wheelhouse. Now that I hear your analysis, I see rook a7 coming. It makes more sense to me that, yeah, this might be an exchange that Fabi can convert.
Yeah, you can play, bishop f8. Worst case, I can play rook a7, right? And look for like a trade there. I do think that, the engine is probably going to sit there and say, oh yeah, we had better, bishop e5, let's play for checkmate. But so human to just get pieces off the board. So I fully understand rook a7. The knight can slide back like knight c6, maybe into e5, also hitting b4. But you have to watch out for that c pawn. It's the only thing holding together all of your pawns, right? You lose c2, you lose b3. It's much harder to win.
Yeah, Magnus going to play a little tickle on that idea. Ooh, now he wants the bishop pair. Although I think white probably still winning even if you go for this, but it's definitely something to call out. There was a fork on e2, so Fabi defends it the other way instead of taking.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of, Magnus kind of talking to himself this match, just expressing that frustration. Don't always see that from him. He knows this has not been his absolute best today, but we also know his something a bit short of his best is usually still enough.
Yeah, it's true. Not the best chess is still usually enough good chess from Magnus Carlsen. And he's making Fabi work here. Again, if mutual time scrambles ensue, still anybody's game. Okay, now rook a7 and rook f7 is mate. So Magnus better watch out for that sort of swing. This could end the game here very quickly.
Yeah, and king f6, there's also ideas like bishop g5, which almost could equally, or sorry, bishop h4 is what I meant, and then rook a7, and then king h6, bishop g5.
Yeah, and now Fabi's trying to get the pieces off the board. Okay, so Magnus down to his last tricks, but he's also down on the clock.
Yep. This should be winning because, you can always sack. You can always sack on h4, which I think he will, and just play b5. And yeah, this got to be 100% winning here.
Yeah.
Magnus recognizing
100%.
that and has to concede, 5.5, 4.5. Shake of the head. Danny, he's not happy with the way that he's been playing some of these positions, and Fabi really recovering and turning this into a really, really exciting and close battle. 5.5, 4.5.
Yeah. You said 100% winning there for Fabi, and I was just going to give a shout out to Ella in the chat and her comments that Magnus is 100% hot. There you go. Shout out to Ella watching and tuning in. And wow, this is going to be a game and a match that comes down to the wire. So it might start to get very nerve-wracking for the Carlsen family if Fabi can keep the pressure and keep the match this close.
Yeah, 100%, Danny. We're looking at a spot where the break maybe is well-timed. Fabi just coming with momentum, right? The 3-minute portion has been good for him so far. As we've said, even if it's not Magnus's best chess, it's usually enough. It is 5.5 to now 4.5 as Fabi has taken that lead in the 3+1 portion. It's a halfway break. And before we take this break, I want to let everyone know that they can level up their chess game with Neuro. Gum and mints for your energy and focus, calm and clarity, and sleep and recharge. Neuro's got you covered with natural products that help you lock in. When every move counts, stay sharp with Neuro. 15% off with code CHESS15. Danny's got some. He went to go.chess.com/Neuro to get it. And we will see you guys when we come back for more 3+1.
Actually, they just sent me a bunch of free samples. But anyway, yeah, go there and get some.
Go there.
Another pep talk? Nah, you're past that. Hype fades, but good energy, that stays. Workout, workday, whatever. We're here for it all damn day. It's never just one thing. Be ready for everything. Mind sharp, focus locked. Don't just move forward. We've got good energy. Neuro Gum and Mints.
Mom wore this to my wedding.
Yeah, she did. We'd each make one move every morning before starting our day.
Are you sure about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll just see.
All right, well.
Gotcha.
Oh my. Oh. Smart kid.
How did she do that? That's incredible. Nice going.
You underestimated her, Grandpa.
I think I like to watch it the most, actually. I mean, playing it is very stressful. I have to say it's not enjoyable because I just find it so stressful to look at a computer for so many hours, and also to have these matches where, like, you lose concentration for half a second and it ruins the hours of work that you put into it. And you see these matches like Vincent Keimer against Wesley So, and it's like you have these last second details which completely reverse a match. It's so stressful and so difficult, but to watch it is great. I really enjoy watching the matches. They're very competitive, very close.
Welcome back to the Speed Chess Championship. We just heard from the man on your screen right now, Fabiano Caruana. Danny, he's saying, you know what? It's such a stressful event. you know, a lot of hard work can be undone in just a single mouse slip, a single mistake that actually enjoys watching it. And I really appreciate that sentiment, because that's the main reason that I don't play in the SCC. I, you know, just prefer watching it as well.
Hey, me too. I decline my invite every year and say I'd rather commentate. But no, whether he likes watching it or playing it better doesn't matter right now, because he is playing a match against Magnus Carlsen, and you got to buckle up, Buttercup, right? The nerves are real. The stakes are real. You're also within striking distance against the pre-event favorite, right? We talked about it. Polymarket has Magnus Carlsen 54% above everybody else. The pre-match prediction for this one specifically, 77%. But you're here. I mean, you're like Fabi, like this is a game separating you and Magnus. I mean, this is a match.
I should point out, you know, we didn't do the interview with him like just now, so it's possible that he'd much rather be enthralled in this match. I think once you're in the moment, it, you know, and you're not thinking about it, genuinely is hopefully still pretty exciting, and you know, someone that just lives with the pressure. We've got a match here that is separated only by a game, which I think if you said to Fabi that, you know, put yourself in this position halfway through the 3-minute portion, he'd probably take it. And he's even got a little bit of momentum in his corner as well. So I think that Fabi's in a good spot. And unless Magnus really kicks it into a higher gear that we haven't seen from him, it's possible that, you know, the level right now, it's shaky enough that Fabi can really pick his moments in this match.
Yeah, agreed. And this is an opening that we know Fabi knows very well, right? Hard to call who is the world's leading expert on these Italian positions these days, but Fabi is among them, right? He plays these positions for both white and black, so we know that he's comfortable.
Yeah, rook f1 is like one of those moves where you try to castle, but you touch your rook first, and then it's like, oh, okay, I guess I have to play rook f1, because got me wondering why the king's not sitting on g1 right now, regardless of which way black castles. Like, I'm starting to wonder genuinely after seeing b5 if we'll see king f2. Like, that's that's how much b5 would dissuade me from castling on the queen side here.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on what Magnus wants. He's going to keep us guessing for a little bit longer. Plays c3. You're right, though, that obviously rook f1 kind of looks like a mouse slip, and he does go for king f2. Okay, so you called the castles by hand. But it's funny, in these Italian positions with such weirdly, they're both semi-closed, but also highly flexible structures in the center when it's the Italian. You can kind of take your time a little bit with odd things like this, and you're not necessarily losing. Although I do like Fabi's position right now.
I mean, there's just no way that Magnus can be better playing rook f1 and king f2, king g1, right? Like, that's just not how the game works. So I'm glad that the Magnus effect is not more powerful than that. Knight g4 was an annoying move to always be, you know, facing e3 pawn and the king hit. And looks like we'll kind of just see a bunch of exchanges on the queen side here in order to liquidate.
Yeah. Liquidation is what is happening. You called it. Probably the queen straight again. Okay, no, you avoid it. Could have also. No, you didn't want to play queen b6, probably because knight c4. So yeah, so Fabi keeps the queens on the board. And whose long-term prospects are better? I mean, everything is totally symmetrical, really, besides the kings and the e-pawns here, but when you look at these Italians, what are the long-term features? Asking for a friend. I already know the answer, right? But I'd love for you to tell all of my friends in chat, what is the long-term plans here?
Well, the king on e2 is immediately making me feel like, okay, an endgame is maybe slightly better for Magnus, because the king is just placed a bit better for that. I definitely like the idea of d4, and I think we're hinting at it with queen c6 guarding the e4 pawn. Dislodging the knight does make a lot of sense to me, so wouldn't be surprised to see d4 here. The other move I'm looking at is knight b3, because if the knights exchange, you kind of get rid of your weakness on a2, but I do like d4 the best, and I'm not surprised to see it there. Again, if the queens exchange, white's king is ready for this endgame.
Yeah. And the queens might exchange, because queen b7 is an idea for Fabi to avoid having to retreat the knight. But if you do it, as you said, all things being equal, white's king is a little bit more in prime position here to make some damage on the queen side. So so Fabi's got to pause and think about that. He's down more than a minute on the clock, which is probably the biggest advantage that either player has off the board.
Mm-hmm. And knight b8, obviously a bit of a strange one, but look, it's offering a pawn here to, yeah, from all I can see. However, the pawns are terrible, right? Let's get these double isolated pawns. It's like, Danny, would you rather have an extra pawn, but you're saddled with these weaknesses, or would you rather just not have the extra pawn and have a more symmetrical position?
It's odd. I would normally just say, yeah, I'd rather go with the pawn, but because it's a potential knight ending, you never know, right? Because in the knight and queen endings, even if the pawns are doubled, they can kind of slowly advance, and maybe you eventually get to exchange it. So I actually think Magnus's winning chances are real here. They are increasing, and obviously now that the a pawn is gone, they are very real.
I mean, this is a move that is going to cause Magnus to play a4 because I don't think king f1, queen e3 is interesting. So it's just going to cause him to play this move. But I do think that it was a mistake, like underestimating queen g3, and then you take g2 with check. So it's going to potentially turn into a bit of a race. Like queen takes g2, maybe queen takes h3, try to get your queen back to help the a pawn, and then use the h pawn to run. But the reality is, White's going to be ahead. White is going to start running that pawn first. So I'm nervous if I'm Fabi, but I do think Magnus missed this.
And by the way, that is the computer suggested blue arrow on top of the orange arrow that I drew. And I think, oh, okay, wow, we're wrong. Magnus does play king f1, allows queen takes e3. He's hoping if he can force the queen trade, the knight ending is a lot easier. But that was not the best. He should have gone for the straight out race position where he tries to get a new queen on the a file. So
yeah, a little bit easier for us to make those calls, but we come to expect the best decisions from Magnus, about as often as we can. Queen d3 has been played. It invites knight c5, so I mean, you're just kind of handing a pawn over. Queen d8's the only reaction, but I think this is what you want as Fabi. Like the position is a bit discoordinated. The a pawn is not running the way that it could before. So even though he maybe hung on to his pawns, did Magnus, it's not as good as probably just running the pawn in the first place.
Yeah. Well, we see, and if anything, compare this position to what it was a few moves ago, and the only change is that White has lost both of the e-pawns, not just one, but both. And so the a-pawn having not gone any further up, and that White king goes from being centralized to potentially in an odd spot when it comes to tactics. You can blunder. So I think Magnus is actually trying to bail out now. I think he just wants a draw and knows that he could lose this.
Yeah, I do think that he can still win it because the a-pawn really does well against a knight. Knight is such a bad piece at covering the wing pawns. So I think that queen trade was very dangerous for Fabi to accept. So he's done the right thing. He's kept the pieces on. Now I'm starting to agree with you more, where it's like, yeah, you're both taking on as much risk as you're giving there.
Yeah, and Magnus realizes that's the case, so he decides to get out of Dodge before things get any messier, any weirder. He maintains a 1-game lead as we are about just over 15 minutes in the 3-minute portion. So Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana have had matches where Magnus usually dominates in the Speed Chess Championship format, but Amon Hambleton and Danny Wrench have commentated on the closest matches so far in the 2025 SCC. So if you're playing your odds and you're looking for a thriller down to the wire, this match could give it to you.
Yep. Yeah, 6-5. You really can't ask for more because, I mean, I think Magnus is in a spot here where he's, at the end of the day, we can talk about how he's not in his best form, but the fact is, Danny, he's up. It's 6-5. This is all you need to do in this format. You just need to win. And right now he's winning. So we can't... it's almost like we're talking about how dominant he usually is. We can't forget that he's still leading this match, and the work is still for Fabi to do.
For sure. Fabi does have a fun position here. Black has the bishop pair and these, whatever this is. It was a Khan Sicilian, kind of almost like a hedgehog, but not quite. The black bishop on d7 instead of fianchettoed on the long diagonal. But black goes for b5 in these positions with the bishop on d7, and he does that.
Yeah, b5 is very standard. It might look like this is the pawn that can be captured the most, like every single white piece is hitting it. But the reality is you're just going to turn this almost into the same type of gameplay as the Benko Gambit, where you just have the A pawn, the B pawn, and even now the E4 pawn sort of in your sights, and the bishops can cause a lot of damage here. Not to mention the pawns in the center can continue to move and open the position up as well, like whether it's E5 or D5. So I'm just saying, even though it looks like, hang on, we've really just tossed like a completely free pawn over, I do think this is a little bit by design.
Yeah, it is by design, because then you get the pawn, but it's kind of just a pretty pawn to look at. It's hard to move it forward without making your position worse. And black has the bishop pair. And if you can, you might try to open up the position quickly. I was going to say, I expect you keep the bishop pair first, but at some point, that light square bishop has no white counterpart to challenge it, so things could get dangerous.
Yep, knights kind of flip their positions on b5. d5 to me is very double-edged. You could say that it's well-timed because now there's no challenge to knight e4, but Fabi takes the really aggressive response and says, sure, congratulations on knight e4. I'm completely solid on the queen side. Nothing to worry about there. Let's play f5, go after the e6 pawn, open up these two rooks on e1 and f1 that are, they've been dying to participate.
Yeah. No, I actually love it. I love the way Fabi's playing this position, and you definitely don't want to take and invite white's knight to come in with tempo. And so, but if you don't, I mean, there's a couple of problems. Taking e6, even f6 is on the agenda if white wants to go all in for the attack. So Magnus isn't just down a pawn. He's down a minute and a half on the board. So not where he wants to be. He finds bishop takes b5. He's trying to simplify the position now.
Interesting recapture. It's so logical to take with the knight. I don't really know if it's the right one, but it's looking pretty good. Anchoring in with knight c6, but also allowing the knight to take on f5. So you're not putting it all the way on the queen side. Potentially even tossing the b pawn, because I don't know how you keep that b pawn forever, but he's looking kingside with these last couple moves.
Yeah, Magnus doesn't go for the simple rook b8 and try to regather the pawn, probably because he just knows that Fabi would have been flipping the script to the attack too soon. So instead, Magnus is trying to keep counterplay going. Rook on the second rank.
Yeah, it really doesn't look like it should be enough, though, if I'm being honest. There is b6. So if you're playing moves like rook b8, like b6 is always there to temporarily keep the pawn. And we see g6, which means immediately you're starting to wonder, is Magnus flipping this around? It no longer feels like we're on the attack. It feels like the pawns are starting to become weak. e5, b5, and b3.
Yeah, and if queen d3 really is an only move, and that is, I've got no hands over here, that's the computer, I'm like, what a subtle and odd move to find if you're white as the only way to keep the advantage.
Yeah, that's not... Like, and in fact, after bishop takes e5, I'm wondering, like, is the next move knight g4? Maybe after, like, idea of knight g4, queen takes back on d4, you have knight f and h6 to worry about. Yeah. But if that's the type of move that you have to find, it speaks to how difficult the position is. And Fabi has actually been on a streak, Danny, with the white pieces. What is he? He's won 3 games in a row, and this could be number 4. It's still very much unclear.
I think he's 2.5 out of the last 3, but yeah. So, but yes, and this would be, I don't think he's won 3 in a row, right? I think it's been 2.5 out of the last 3. Anyway, here we are. The point is Fabi playing well as white, and yeah, now what is going on here? The trade on e5 happened, but Fabi kept the b pawn.
Yeah, knight f2. Okay. At this point, I'm a bit more concerned for, like, probably just drawish, but those pawns are not strong anymore. I think it's pretty clear that the b pawn is probably going to fall. But you really don't want to trade those rooks. If the rooks just disappear, suddenly the queen endgame with the b pawn, I'm concerned.
Yeah, the b pawn is very dangerous. It's already on the 6th rank. And if you have threats like queen c5 or queen over, it becomes on the 7th rank. So, okay, Magnus is going to back up and go pick it up.
Yep.
Make sure we get an endgame.
Fall.
Yeah.
This is exactly it.
Okay. Fun stuff though. Magnus is getting counterplay. Not that he is maybe trying to win, but stranger things have happened.
I agree. You want to keep him honest. Also, rook e4 has that idea of rook takes h4 just to make that threat. Doesn't hurt to make those threats. Okay, offering rook h4. They're now both going into it. I think at this point, yeah, you take on e2 and take on b6. This is the real question.
Yeah.
Draw offer,
well,
do you think?
We're going to see. Yeah. Perpetual check and a draw. So I don't know who feels better about that draw, but Magnus has to be feeling good about the fact that he keeps the 1-game lead, as we're saying. And you and I predicted heading in that even with the pre-match Chess.com model saying that Bullet was a coin flip, we felt like...
Oh, are we going to see it again?
We saw it again, and they missed Queen A5 again. Oh my gosh. Is this like a gambit that we're just not privy to? Like a top-level gambit?
Yeah, I'm now very curious. And also I'm wondering, are they not looking at the games, right? This game must have just kind of slipped by both of them. And you can't check every game, but it's like clearly this one didn't really make the review because that knight e4 queen a5, unless we got to recalibrate the engine or something there, Danny, that's a double question mark. And, queen a5 was there.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to do a deep dive game review after this. I'm just fascinated to know, or maybe we'll talk to one of them in the post-game interview and say, hey, are you aware that you played this opening twice and that both times Queen A5 was possible? What do you understand as a 2800 player that we don't? It'll be fun to see. Maybe we'll just ask them.
Yep. I'm sure that they could both comment on that. Maybe it's just been a blind spot. If they missed it once, you're not playing that position and looking for a new move. You're just like, okay, let me play the same theory as last time, especially because I will say it does seem like Magnus has looked a little bit at the line in general, right? He's played it differently.
Yeah.
He very specifically played queen to c3 instead of the natural h4, which was met by queen f6. So this is like screaming as if Magnus has briefly looked at this, improved the line, because look at how the engine prefers white compared to the last time they played.
Well, let's back up then and say again why we're going to ask the players in the interview. We'll analyze it real quick, because I think at this point, if we can get them to reveal some high-level prep, because either knight e4 is just not a blunder, and that this sacrifice of a pawn is by design.
Well, Danny, let's not make the mistake. Let's not give these guys too much credit here. Got to trust ourselves. You and me, buddy. That's a blunder, we believe it, and we stand by it.
No, but what you're saying is this position here is being played by Magnus in a way that makes you feel like he's looked at it before. And if he's looked at this before, that means he's maybe looked at knight e4 before. You get what I'm saying? So it's befuddling the mind right now.
I'm saying that I think he somehow skipped ahead of knight e4 and only looked at the position after he played c3, queen f6, and was like, no, let me improve this. Queen c3, that's the move. And he just blew by the opening. Didn't even think there could be anything wrong with it. That's my best guess. Okay. But as you said, love to chat to either one of these players, whoever wins this match, because they'll be able to shed some light for good.
All right. Well, shout out to production. We're gonna want to have a 3-cam game review in a rare interview. We normally focus on non X's and O's related questions, but I think we have to ask these guys about this. So, all right, okay, what do we got here? Another weird position where the computer loved queen f6, but that was not found by Fabiano. I like e5 too, though.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, no principles apply. There's nothing you can go off of. White has a queen running around the board, a rook on h3, no pieces developed, no semblance of king safety. Black, meanwhile, has one knight developed. This is breaking every chess principle and barely hanging together for both sides. So this is a truly wild position.
Yeah. Okay. Well, oh, my castle's long. I love it. That's like a puzzle right there. Not that it wins material, but I love the castle's long with tempo before picking up the d4 pawn.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. Now Magnus gets back his pawn, and white is better.
I mean, the bishop on b7 is just really bad. I guess I'm looking at bishop c4. Maybe you can put that bishop back on b3. The other idea is to swing the rook over to b3. It looks like a bit of a weird move, but it kind of forces the correction of the structure, which is really in white's favor, I think.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Magnus does. White is up a pawn, and it's a good pawn. It's a powerful one on d6, so you complete your development. You might even have ideas. Okay, queen g5 stops. I was going to say, you might even have ideas of trying to use the diagonal.
Yeah,
in fact,
f4,
Magnus likes
queen
that.
takes g4, rook g1. So this is what he's thinking about. And I don't think there's any weird, like, bishop g2. So I just don't think you can take it at all. So that was kind of his trap, I think, with bishop d3.
Yeah, it was a nice trap, too. I think Fabi kind of head in hand there, a little bit frustrated, probably just flat out missed that f4 meant that the g4 pawn was poisoned, because when you play f4, it wasn't just that you attack the queen, you open up the queen's defense of g1. So I think it's possible Fabi just missed that, and now Magnus is really in control.
Yep. Yeah, okay, so a4 is, like, especially if we saw rook a1 there, a4 would almost certainly get played. It's not that it's a great move, but, like, it opens up the white king a little bit, and white at this point is looking probably for any trade, rooks, queen. Most of the endgames look phenomenal. I'm wondering about queen c3 as a method to pick up the a pawn.
Or force the queens off the board. And I really like that idea. I think if you're Fabi, yeah, exactly. You'd rather give up that pawn than trade into the lost ending, but now you're down yet another one. What is going on here? Apparently
yeah,
rook
it's
a8.
very difficult. Very difficult to follow.
Very difficult to evaluate what's going on here. But black does have real counterplay on the a file if the rook comes to a8, and it's happening.
Yeah, the king's going to escape back to the middle, but for a position where you're down, a pawn and kind of don't have a good position, I feel like at least there's some ideas.
Yeah. Queen to a6, bishop d3.
Okay, rook e7. I mean, there's no threats. There's queen a1's nothing. Queen e1's covered.
Yeah, everybody is happy. Everybody's protecting everybody. And black has to be careful. The back rank problems are there because the bishop is guarding this h7 square.
Rook b4. Yeah, nice. The rook b4 doesn't work because of exactly that.
Yep. Okay, bishop to d5, though, overwhelms the queen.
Oh, bishop h7.
You got to move.
Bishop h7
over.
over.
No. Oh, no. He had to move, didn't have enough time on the clock, guards the bishop, but not the queen discovery, and Magnus Carlsen takes a 2-game lead. So, okay, big game here. I'm going to say that Fabiano is white. He's been on a roll with white. It's where all of his games, all of the games that he's won in this match have come with white. So if Fabi can get the dub here, he can keep this thing close heading into bullet.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it definitely looks like a really important game because 8.5, 5.5 is pretty much at that exact point where I would call that, not acceptable to go into bullet. But he wins here, 7.5 to 6.5. I think that's perfectly fine. Obviously the pre-match prediction had Fabi's bullet being very, very decent in terms of comparing to Magnus, but this game is worth a lot more than just a single point.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Well said. You got to keep this thing close. You definitely don't want to lose. I mean, obviously a 1 point deficit is way better than a 2-point deficit, but definitely don't go down by 3 if you're Fabi here.
Yeah, and so he's got the pieces that the white pieces. He's been doing the best with white so far. This is the opportunity. Can't be too happy with how he's taken some of these losses, but he's had all the chances. Like, we've seen double question mark moves from both of these players all over the place. So it has been a loose match. And to me, that always means there's chances for a comeback. It's not the type of match where one player has been dominating and it's like they feel unbeatable. You never get an opening advantage. You're never up on time. You never have an opportunity. There's been opportunities. That's not the issue here.
Totally agree. And that was the matchup that happened the last time these two guys played. Fabi didn't get a single win. Magnus Carlsen dominated. Now, Fabi doesn't want, participation trophies. He's not happy just because he won some games in this match. He wants to win it. At the same time, this has been close. This has been a close match, partly because, as you said, it's been a blunderful match. Lots of mistakes, and so who knows what bullet will have for us. Maybe we got a lot more ahead.
Yeah, this is certainly going to be the last 3+1 game. Top left of your screen, that match clock expiring, 20 seconds and ticking down, which is why Danny is already realizing that the bullet is what is going to start to matter here. But the players can't get too far ahead of themselves, because we've been talking about how crucial this is. I think Magnus is in a position that he would find pretty comfortable. The bishop has found a nice square on f7. The knight is sort of taking care of the counterplay on the queen side here. Maybe b4 is an idea, but you have to keep building it up, and we see the knight ready to jump to b5.
Yeah, Magnus decides to take his eye off the b4 ball, but come into b5 here, which makes sense, because if you play b4, you might even just take it, and if the d4 square becomes open for business, then that's a good thing. So, yeah, Fabi has to pause and really think about what do you do in these positions where you've got multiple breaks to consider, but none of them look great.
Yeah, and well, actually, we see the rook going back to a1, so a little bit unusual there, but also the type of position where you can see that Fabi is looking for a break. He's calculating deep, and Magnus is playing, more like surface level moves, just kind of maneuvering the pieces. And Fabi's looking for something, and that's why Fabi's time is like 40 seconds lower. And Magnus is happy to, let him sit and do all the calculation work.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because Fabi really wants to win this game. He knows he has the white pieces, knows he needs to keep it close going into bullet, but trying to find the best move in a position where Magnus is just messing around with the knight. He's just like having a good time. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Here come the light squares.
Yes, they do. Well timed there, I think, with the change in structure, like g3, king g2, h4. And now f5, before white starts to maybe play h5, g4, just takes control over every side of the board. Magnus wants something.
Yeah, and it means you're kind of all in on the pawns you advance. So Fabi has to go for this h5 idea to kind of justify the pawns he moved in front of his king. But I think, regardless of the best move the engine might say or not, I feel like the more this position opens up, the more it favors black. So yes, Magnus finds the best move, but I'm just looking at the light squares and the dangers that are coming to Fabiano's position.
Yep, and they're moments away. You can't play g4 to completely solidify everything. You'd love to. Yeah, it's also difficult to play knight e4 because the d3 pawn is always hanging or loose after you place a knight on d2. So because those two are not possible, the f-pawn is looking like a target over the next couple moves, whether it's queen f6 and takes or queen f7 and takes, and then all of black's pieces start to activate, right? Knight d5, knight e6. Oof.
Whoa. Well, Fabi gets away with knight to d2. There must have been something they both calculated, because Magnus immediately responded knowing he wanted better than taking the pawn, but he does take it this time. So yeah, this is
10 seconds, less than 10. This is like a big, big problem. You can see the engine is favoring Magnus. He's in complete control here.
Yeah, and now he's spoiled for choice. He finds e4. There were multiple other moves that probably worked. Look at that. Fabi on the increment. This is not looking
c3
good.
is hanging. f5 is hanging. Knight d5, knight e6. It's all crashing down because you could not take on e4.
Yeah. And black's position is as Yaz would say, black has the material and the compensation here.
Yep, that's exactly right. Not looking good at all. I mean, like every move you consider, there's always bishop f3, right? Like you can just play bishop f3 and there's damn near a mate coming next move.
Yeah, you could play bishop f3 too to just see if you can get Fabi to flag. Not that you need to do that, but at this point, there's just, oh my God, he made that move with 0.1 second. And he finally runs out of time. Magnus Carlsen gets the last 3-minute game to go his way, and with it takes a 3-game lead into the bullet.
Yeah, Magnus just kind of finding his form there in those last couple of games. The best players make it happen when it matters, and he's now up 3 points going into the 1+1 bullet segment. Fabi is not just going to have a good bullet section, he's going to have a great bullet segment, because that's the only way he's making this comeback happen. And there's been so many positions that they've shared, and I think back to the ones that Fabi has done well in, and I don't know that he has the time on the clock in Bullet to sort of showcase that how surgical he can be. He's not going to be able to play as accurately, and most of his wins have been some really beautiful, kind of highly accurate games that he's had to play.
Yeah, and if some of those long Italian maneuvering games happen, even if he gets a win or two, it might be the kind of game that takes too much time off the match clock, right? So he's really in a tough spot to hit the drawing board here, right? You saw Fabi get up very quickly when the game was over, not maybe just to clear his mind, but maybe give some thought to what he wants to do in the Bullet portion.
Yep. Well, with 1+1 ahead, Fabi is hitting the drawing board, and we can announce another board that you should all pay close attention to, and that is fellow game changer Chess.com, the record-breaking company taking the gaming world by storm. Their brand new Chess.com 2. It's a physical electronic board that syncs to your Chess.com rated games, which you can then save and analyze on Chess.com. Has built-in Wi-Fi, a touch screen, and touch sense pieces. Chess.com 2 supports players of all levels. There's been over 500,000 Chess.com games that have already been played on Chess.com 2, and now we're hooking everyone up with 10% off. You just have to use the code CCT10. So head over to playchessup.com or !chessup in chat to unlock this limited time offer. We are looking to find out in the Bullet portion who is going to make it to the live finals in London in this quarterfinal matchup between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. We'll be right back.
Has this ever happened to you?
Oh, shoot. Another mouse slip.
What about this?
Oh, well, holy bishops en passant. I think I'm getting carpal tunnel. If only there was a way to play online chess with a real-life board.
What if I told you you can with Chess.com 2? That's right. With Chess.com 2, you can now play over the board online.
Wow.
Simply connect your Chess.com account to our state-of-the-art Chess.com 2 and get a game started. Every time you move, our revolutionary board will transmit the data online directly to your opponent. And as soon as they move, squares will light up, signifying which piece is going where.
Well, shucks. This Hikaru guy seems pretty good.
With Chess.com 2, mouse slips and sore wrists are a thing of the past.
My carpal tunnel is gone. Well, this sure is fun. I'm playing online against my new friend Hikaru. Who needs a family? But I sure do miss clicking on a piece and seeing all of my available moves, like they have on Chess.com.
Well, Danny, you're in luck. This feature is totally available on the Chess.com 2 as well.
Wow. Well, I'm convinced. But hey, what if I don't just want to play an opponent online? What if I want to use one of Chess.com's other great tools?
I thought you'd never ask. With Chess.com 2, you can fully take advantage of the Chess.com integration by playing bots, analyzing your offline games, and even using our optional AI assistants to visualize the quality of moves with color-coded hints.
Well, holy Chess.com, you did it. You made IRL chess cool again.
You got it, Danny.
And how do you know my name?
Play chess today on the board of tomorrow.
You're a ChatGPT user, right?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it's I generally prefer it to Googling these days.
Well, to make things a little more interesting, you've been playing chess for a lot longer than ChatGPT's been around. We're going to have you play blindfolded if you don't mind.
Sure.
And we'll just have you spin in your chair and we'll make the moves on your behalf. So good luck.
I'll play H4.
Love it. ChatGPT calls your move unorthodox.
That is true.
D5 is ChatGPT's move.
D4.
Okay. ChatGPT is aware you're going for E4, or at least it thinks you are. H5 is the response.
Oh, wow. C4.
C6.
Solid, maybe a little bit passive.
Rook C8 is the response.
Can you ask ChatGPT if it can see why that may be a mistake?
Sure.
Because if we're not learning, then what are we doing?
It thinks your move was a mistake. It's talking about why castling queenside is risky. It says your queenside pawn structure is a bit loose. Okay, let's try to be a little more specific with ChatGPT. Do you see a danger to your pieces on the D file, if I can use those words? Ah, good catch. Yes, I do see a danger on the D file. But then it goes back to you. With your king on C1, the D file is semi-open and your rook on D1 can become very active. Then it says, right now my knight on D7 is pinned. I'm not sure what knight it's thinking about. So you've confused it. It can't learn like us humans can.
What a shame. Rook D1.
Okay, it did last 20 moves without actually making an illegal move, although it had some illegal thoughts. Rook F4 is not allowed, but it's what it says. So you have the option of putting it out of its misery and capturing the king, or forcing it.
No, let's go Rook D8.
Okay, so we'll put Rook F4 on board, and we'll play Rook takes D8. Oh, now we get to have some fun. I'll respond with Rook takes H4, capturing your H-pawn in return and trying to activate my rook.
Well, the rook was just an F4, so it's not completely unreasonable. Okay. I'll try King E6.
Love it. That's the kind of move we can get behind. All right, Rook takes C4, taking a bunch of, it's taking space at least, yeah.
King F7.
Oh, I think I see the illegal checkmate you're gonna go for. We'll see if you're thinking the same thing. All right, E takes D5. That one just came out of nowhere.
Okay.
Just take a pawn from the graveyard, put it on top of the knight maybe, and I think I see what maybe is happening.
Queen H5.
Yes, the queen jumps over the king. And let's see if ChatGPT allows the checkmate. Okay, you might have to cry foul on this one, Magnus. It's playing Rook takes H5. Might be a good time to announce checkmate. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was the first illegal move of the game, but it did very well till now.
Your favorite creator can now be your very own chess coach. Choose your favorite chess personality and they'll join you in game review, puzzles, lessons, and play coach. Pick up tips from Hikaru.
Oh my gosh, this is just taking material. Takes.
Test your tactics against Gotham Chess. Or learn about the importance of queen safety with Andrea and Alex.
Got your queen!
Want to learn from the GOAT himself? We got you.
Hey, I'm Magnus Carlsen.
Explore which chess personality sharpens your game. Playing and learning chess has never been so exciting. Who are you picking?
I guess on a day-to-day basis, some sort of sleep deprivation can be a slight negative, or even more than that on a day-to-day basis. But overall, I feel like the times that I've been able to play chess rested recently, I've been just as good as before. So I feel good.
Welcome back to this chess championship. Magnus Carlsen on your screen right now. Danny providing some insight into, his new chapter, what his life is like now. And I like to hear the honesty that, some things are different, but he's calling it like it is. He says, I can still find my best chess no matter what.
Yeah. At some point you start singing the Toby Keith song, maybe not as good as you once were, but as good once as you ever were. I don't think we're there yet with Magnus. I think he's still pretty good most of the time, doesn't have to dig too deep. We see him getting getting something in his stomach to make sure he maintains his energy down the stretch here. We've got only 25 minutes more. And I'm wondering what Fabiano is going to have up his sleeve to try to maybe throw Magnus off and keep this thing close.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, we're going into bullet, right? We got 25 minutes to decide this whole thing. Pretty important match because the winner moves on, and we'll be at the live finals in London. And also, for some of the other competitors, I've mentioned this a few times on previous shows, but just kind of an interesting dynamic that if Magnus wins, everyone else who wins their match books a spot to the EWC final, right? So it's just kind of, they are probably thinking, hey, wouldn't mind a Magnus win, because then suddenly I just have one more match to win.
Yep. Poor Fabi, right? Whoever set up these pyramids gave him a tough road, a tough road to Riyadh. But all right, it's not over yet. He can still shock the world and deny Magnus Carlsen a ticket to London, but it's going to take a lot. And yeah, it's a really great call out that if Magnus wins this, then everyone else has even more to play for in the upcoming quarterfinal matchups next week.
That's right. That's right. And such a bullet opening here by Fabiano, facing the London and the Jobava London, that is, and going immediately knight h5, very, very early, knight g7, knight f5. So the whole thing has been sort of unorthodox, and very commonly you'll see that a-pawn just venture up the board, right? This is modern chess at its finest.
Modern chess at its finest, which sometimes is like unprincipled chess or new principles, I guess. Fabi finds a way to win the bishop pair, so black has that going for him.
Yeah, this is fine. I mean, the light squared bishop is certainly a good piece, so Fabi can be very happy about that, but there's a certain pressure on the king side that if the dark squared bishops ever exchange, then suddenly the center is a bit weaker, and wow, he's actually just going to go right for this pawn. I can't blame him. In bullet, I think Magnus is coming out on top here.
I was looking at it and wondering why my eyes were deceiving me, but no, Magnus just takes the pawn. He can reinforce the knight with e4 or c4. Decides to keep the queen side pawns more flexible.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not really buying this position, but Fabi, I think, had that more or less worked out when he brought his bishop back. He knew that he had this idea, e6, bishop c3.
Yeah, and he's going to win the... No, the queens are traded and black has some compensation, but the e4 pawn can't be taken as long as the bishop is under attack.
He missed rook d3, because I was going to say the follow-up I was expecting was maybe bishop e2 to jump in there. But yeah, this is definitely just bad, let's say. The pawn kind of gets rescued, and I think Magnus is in control.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, so the queen trade wasn't great for white because of the e2 square being available, but Fabi didn't take it. And now the knights are just... Yeah. The position is closed enough, too, that the knights can poke and prod, and white will eventually flex the extra pawn.
Yeah, there's no way... The thing about bishops is you can never add more pressure to any target. Like, you can just attack it once if you have the bishop pair. So, yeah, this is probably a win for maybe a few different reasons for Magnus, but we'll see which one he actually goes for. He's going to waste... a lot of time. He's very smart for this. If he really does wait the maximum, which he does not, but he could have played a lot more moves there.
Yeah, I was about to say, is he going to go full Hikaru here? Is he going to make a whole bunch of moves and make sure he doesn't repeat? Because remember, everybody, in the SCC, it's not just the scoreboard, but it's the match clock. And so Magnus could have waited even longer than he did. But when semi Hikaru, baby Hikaru,
knight d4. I wonder. Makes sense. You can't play king b5, which you might want to do, but the knight's coming in at d6. And I will say, this has been a pretty, carefree game so far with knight d8, knight e6 coming. I think this is all in the bag.
Yeah. If I'm Fabi, I would even just, resign. Okay, he does it right as I called for it, because this is just, you're torturing yourself on the board and you're eliminating your own chances, even if they're small. Yeah, even if they're small at this point, you got to just resign and just keep playing. You have no choice.
Yeah, Magnus is not messing that one up. Rook to g1, talk about modern chess. This is actually an idea that's not new at all. The idea of playing g4 or even the idea of rook g1, I find ever present. And he decides, of course, bullet is the best place to maybe bring that out.
Yeah, and I like it. This is what you want to see. Let's get the kings on opposite sides of the board. Let's try to go for an attack. Although Magnus hasn't committed yet, he could still castle queenside.
Yeah, bishop takes f6. There was pawn takes c6 with d6 hanging. So that's why Magnus played g takes f6, which is definitely a strange looking move. I'm expecting takes. Maybe bishop back to d3. He allows f4. Yeah, I don't know. It felt like Fabi could have taken on f5 and tried to use how open the position was. It doesn't seem like something you'd want to do against the bishop pair, but the king is in the center.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know what to what to say both sides should play for here. Fabi playing for a very slow plan, the rook to c1, and Magnus is just all in on the king side right now.
I'm wondering at some point if c5, like basically it was getting to the point where there's so much kingside play by Magnus that you feel Fabi is kind of going to switch sides, and I kind of want to play c5 there. So this makes sense to me. I do think this is really, really bad position for Fabi, not because it's lost, but because it feels like it will be a long game, and it feels like maybe only he could lose. I'm not liking what I'm seeing here.
No, I totally agree. The position on the board also good for Magnus, but even better is that this is a closed position that only black can change. Only black can push or not.
Yeah.
So
don't like this.
The kind of game where another 2 minutes could easily be off the match clock here before this is done.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to see like, okay, knight b2, you can still play a4, so it doesn't really help you. a4 is happening. Black is just getting rid of all the weaknesses. The bishop, if it invades to d4, this game is completely over.
Yeah, you don't even want the rook. You want the bishop on d4.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a really, really nice game so far by Magnus, and like we've been saying, it can continue still for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if they get the full 2 minutes I was saying could be off the clock. Who knows, maybe more. But yeah, you can really just slow jam this one, unless you just win on the B file now. That might be true.
Ooh, I was almost thinking of b2 there, but yeah, probably unnecessary because of knight d5 check. And yeah, this is not the best. The king has so many safe squares, king g5, king f4, and you have to assume the c-pawn is not gonna overrun you completely, but it's white's only chance, so you probably got to play c7.
Yeah. Well, you're hoping for rook b8. You also have bishop d7, so but Magnus is not going to give you enough time. His pawns are faster. His chess moves are just faster and better than most people when he plays, and he's up 5 games right now.
Yeah, it's all kind of clicking again. I think if you have watched the match until now, you compare, the Magnus in the first half of the match, let's say the 5 minute and then first half of the 3 minute, compared to the latter half of the 3 minute and the bullet, it's almost two completely different players. Because he is showing up. He's definitely a lot more confident. He's not doubting himself. And Fabi needs to get on the board. We talked about him winning a game early in the match. He needs to win a game in the bullet.
Yeah. Get a bullet win. Don't let it be a full runaway train here for Magnus. Although right now, speaking of runaway trains, this is a completely winning position for white. The knight's coming to e5. I don't know if you're playing queen f5 check or knight e5 first. Okay, you check first. And then go back, I guess.
Queen back.
Now you have the f7 square. Yeah, okay, that was the idea.
And king g7, we're almost in those positions where you could play anything you want. Knight e5, bishop h6, like almost everything will work here.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Bishop h6 might even just work straight up, but as you said, knight e5 first, also just threatening queen f7.
Yeah.
This is tough. Fabi kind of not necessarily shaking his head. Yeah, he's got nothing to do. Here comes 95. Are you just... Okay, the only shot you have to watch out for is your queen gets trapped with bishop c8. So that's the only move that could lose this game for Magnus.
Yeah. Yep, agree. That's what I'm now looking at. I mean, e7 is hanging, so there's always some sort of knight move to unleash the rook and queen on the bishop on e7. Should probably starting to think about that. It wouldn't surprise me that we see a knight move here.
And it's so painful because, okay, white didn't checkmate you, but white is just up a pawn with the compensation again. And
It's almost more painful because you might lose the game and it continues. Yeah.
No, exactly. You almost would rather be put out of your misery and still have the most epic comeback possible. But we might get yet another 90 seconds off the clock here, and Magnus is just milking this one. He's going to take h6 next.
Yeah, I definitely don't like. I do think taking on d5 there was the move.
Was better.
Yeah, it was hanging and could be taken. So that was probably a miss. But opposite bishops now. White with a very slight edge. I think Fabi's fought back very, very nicely. I still don't know if it's enough, but he's done a great job.
Yeah. Okay. Magnus wants to get rooks off the board. Knight b5.
Oh no, this is even if it's not winning, this could be like 4 minutes off the match clock.
Yeah, if Magnus just wants to make this one last forever, he easily could. It's not necessary. But yeah, here comes the h-pawn.
G4, h5. That's unstoppable. Big problem.
Trade rooks. You're a wizard,
There's
Harry.
bishop f5 and rook c2, which is helpful. Maybe to trade the rooks, but okay, reposition now. They both just did the same gesture, like hand up, like, what the heck did I just do? What did I just do?
Yeah. It's pretty funny. All right, but Magnus does get yet another one. He takes a 6-game lead. We have 13 minutes to go. It is a Magnus Carlsen world right now, and we're living in it as far as the SCC goes. And I don't know when we're officially doing the math on the game clock, but I think he's about to punch his ticket to London and make 6 other remaining players very happy, because if they win and go to London, they're also punching their ticket for the EWC.
Yep. This is exactly right. It's tough for Fabi because it is one of the most difficult paths, obviously, getting through Magnus. However, I thought he did a pretty good job. The 3+1 really turned around towards the end. Let's not forget, this match was brought back, from an early deficit into just a 1-point deficit. And then it spiraled really in the bullet. The bullet has been a big difference maker. You can see already 3-0 for Magnus, and he's building upon that.
Yeah. Shocking and terrible pre-match predictions from Chess.com there, because the idea that this was a even 4-4 score in bullet was just, that might have been I don't know what the data was on that, but Magnus definitely the favorite, and he's showing that here.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. This is looking again. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily Magnus's best game or anything. He's probably in trouble objectively. The H-pawn push was really nice, but it's just, you can even see the eval bar. It's just that it always seems to work out.
Yeah, I don't even know what happened there. That's a bullet fiesta there. White is you like the queen and the knight potentially, but you also love the queen and the bishop on the long light square diagonal. So
yeah,
as long as you don't allow queen f7, Magnus is threatening some stuff.
Yeah, knight f5 is an idea, but queen here will probably get met by king. Yep, king f1.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Still,
I mean, I prefer white's position, but I can see how an endgame where black plays g5 h4 actually doesn't work out, and that's a bit concerning that the knight, doesn't really do that well against that outside pawn.
Yeah, the knight would be happy if the queens were off the board. If you can get knight c4, these pawns are stuck on dark squares. But yeah, this outside idea of g5 and h4 is looming and dangerous.
Yep, we might see a queen trade proposed here.
Yep, we do.
Yeah, you could take and play f4, and then at least g5 h4 is not happening. So I could see that happening. But I do think
This is what we-
G5 and Bishop C2 is too much. Too many threats.
Yeah. I think your idea of F4 was necessary. Instead, now we're in a race, and you don't want to be in a race as a knight versus a bishop. The race position's
No, you
always
don't.
favored. In fact, Bishop D5 is just over. The knight is just trapped.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
nice
this
move,
is not good.
dominating the knight, and 100% stuck. King's walking
Yep.
over to the G pawn. Really, really nice.
Yeah. Anytime you get a position where there are targets on both sides of the board, let alone pass pawns, you are suddenly in a world where it's not even close. The bishop is better than the knight, and here Magnus is better than Fabi again. He has won every single bullet game so far. Did I just say that as my voice got higher? Because I wasn't sure. But I think Magnus has won every single game in bullets so far.
That's correct. Yep, that is 100% correct.
Wow.
There's 10 minutes left, and you can do the math on these 1+1 games. By the way, they're not 2-minute games, right? It's not like 1 minute each, 2 minutes total. A single game can be easily 3 minutes, let alone 4 or 5. So there's just not enough time on this match clock in order to make this comeback.
Yeah. Oh, well, that is unfortunate. This was a very, very close match for a very long time. If you're tuning in just now, shame on you. It's been a lot of fun, and it's also been close. I don't think either of these guys would say it was their best chess today. Magnus finding this really fun tactic with knight takes e5. But it was
Yeah, I love
close,
that.
even if it wasn't the best chess for a long time. And now Magnus just turned on the jets.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you just kind of like tuned into the final score, you might be like, oh, okay, Magnus beat Fabi, I don't know, 14.5 to 6.5 or something. Like, I guess he crushed him.
Right.
And the reality is that the separation really just all came in the bullet. And it's actually been I thought Fabi was really doing well against sort of a battered Magnus Carlsen. It wasn't his finest form that he brought today, but I will say the reason Fabi did not do better is there were opportunities, and there's so many that were just not capitalized on, and you just can't let that many opportunities slip against Magnus.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because obviously there were some internet issues early on. For those of you who've been here the whole time, we love you, and I think maybe that rattled Fabi a little bit. I don't know. I mean, when you miss a chance, like on King E7, I'm sorry to do the baseball announcer thing now, where we're in a blowout and we're talking about other things, but at this point the match is over. And when you miss chances like that, Amon, and you don't penalize a blunder like King E7, it's hard to say you're going to beat Magnus on a day like that. You have to find those opportunities.
This, by the way, was like a really, really nice sequence. In Fabi is just kind of like, he's kind of nodding in appreciation. Rook takes f5, sacking on h5. Like Magnus is now in that mode where he looks unbeatable, and this is like where that 22-4 score in a previous SCC match came from. It was this right here, and there's just it's 1,000% over now. Rook d1.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a brilliant sequence there. He found his form. Stella got her groove back, however that is. Magnus got his groove back, and he's going to London.
Yep. Yeah, he'll be the first, let's say, quarterfinal match to end in victory. So the first semifinalist in London. And obviously there's a couple more matches still to play to determine not only Magnus's opponent, but the other 3 semifinalists.
Yep. Yeah. And every one of those matchups is going to be amazing. But okay, yeah. Another game. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my steam a little bit because this one's over. And it's too bad. I was really hoping for a closer finish. The first non-down to the wire match you have done with me this year.
Yeah, and I mean, a down to the wire match when the previous one was 22-4 is a tough ask because it has been a point of struggle for Fabiano. But it did actually look like a close match earlier. So in some ways, it really maybe did deliver for a good portion of this match. But obviously there's no other way to say it. Magnus is just running away with it now. And he's obviously secured the win. It's really just, how many points he he puts up, because the match clock we only have just about 6 minutes left together, no matter what, and I'm waiting to see what that final score is going to be.
Magnus threatening queen f1 checkmate. Mark it down. That's a fun little tactic. The knight guards the g2 square. So, okay. Fabi doesn't give us our moment. Fabi defends.
Knight f1. Yeah, knight takes g3 is good, and it's going to resign that one as well. They're adding up. I mean, it's starting to get in the territory of, hang on a sec. Is this going to be 10 games in a row type of thing?
Oh, well, there we go. We have another one of these 94. Oh, queen
played
f5
it.
is found. So wait.
And I like that there's a smile, because I think he's the only one. This is hilarious.
This is so
He's the
funny.
only one who looked at it.
Okay.
They're both realizing they missed it the
Oh my
entire
God.
match.
This is hilarious. They're both like, what the F happened to get here? And, okay, if you're just tuning in, this is a hilarious inside chess joke or not, because these two guys have played this opening multiple times, and we've just been like, why was queen a5 not played? And they just answered the question. So maybe we don't need game review anymore. Maybe we'll ask Magnus about it anyway. But either way, that moment was hilarious.
Don't you feel good that you trusted you and me, buddy? We stick together. We knew, us commentators, we had one over the players there.
we did. Well, I doubted myself for a moment. Classic imposter syndrome. I mean, you were confident the whole time. I was just like fascinated, because it wasn't just once, twice, 3 times. This is the 4th time it's been played, and it took 4 times for Fabiano
Fabi looked
to play
at it, right?
He must have.
He looked at it, right? He must have looked at it, and probably had this moment off screen where he was laughing to himself. I can't believe he missed it.
Yeah.
And then it's almost poetic. The match is over, but Magnus flings the line out, and both of them kind of smirked at each other. Magnus, because he's like, wait a minute, this has been losing the entire match. And Fabi's like smirking because the same thing, except he's the one who did the research and found out, except it doesn't matter. Like, he wishes he made use of that a little bit earlier.
Well, I think we're going to start our interview with Magnus on that moment anyway, just because it was something we were prepared to talk about anyway, and it was pretty funny to see. So we'll get his thoughts. Chat, give us your questions. Obviously, we're going to have an interview with Magnus at some point. So, give us your questions, whatever you got, as we got Magnus Carlsen going to London. Although Fabiano Caruana,
he deserves that win, Queen a5 check.
Hey, shout out to Queen a5 check, right? Am I right? Shout out.
Yeah. You're not. Yeah, no one wins 10 games in a row against Fabi with Queen a5 check available. Yeah. There you have it. And
was it 10 game? Was that the 10th win in a row? Was that?
It was. I don't know actually how the 3-minute ended to really do a full 10 count, but within the time control, yeah, I guess it was 6 in the bullet.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but regardless, it was definitely trending in the direction of a few more bullet wins for Magnus, and that ended things. And honestly, I'm kind of happy for Fabi that he got a win in that line, because that line should be a win for Black, and it's about time it ended that way.
Wow. Well, this has been an interesting day, a super fun match, not necessarily for the reasons you might have predicted on paper when you've got the two guys who competed for the 2018 World Championship match, maybe the most accurate chess match in the history of the world. Today was not the most accurate chess at times by both these guys, and they played the same opening that was just losing multiple times.
Yeah, you got that right. This might be the last game, but we might get one more. It's going to be very close. I think. If it's a quick win, then I do think we get another one.
Okay, Fabi is on the grind here. Here we go. Come on, Queen h6. Put the bishop on f5, or bring the rook to f5. I don't know. Just like somebody's sacking and mating. Come on. Maybe rook f5 now. By the way.
Yeah, Queen h6, rook f5. You have all these moves. What you don't want is to lose the f-pawn, and then everything that you thought you had is gone. But I like the slow approach. There's really nothing that can be done to stop it. Rook takes c1, you might want to prevent.
Yeah, you give check and bishop g5. Oh, no, he doesn't. This
Yeah, rook
also
h3
works,
is
though.
pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, this also works. All right, well, Fabiano is on track to getting his second win in a row in Bullet, making this final score look a little differently. Nice.
Yep, nice move there. And faltering at the very end here, but it looks like with Magnus maybe surviving with the queen, this might be the last game. I think that's the only question remaining, really.
Yep. Will we get one more, or is this it? Everyone waits with bated breath. Quickly, bet. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that.
Rook f7.
It's actually coming down. I don't know what's going to happen. Look at it. Oh, Magnus lets it go.
He's watching the match clock, I think.
Yeah. Fabiano smiles. That was pretty funny. All right.
What an end to that matchup. In the end, it was Magnus Carlsen taking over in the bullet portion and winning this quarterfinals matchup, an all-Team Liquid matchup, which, of course, obviously means Team Liquid has representation in London. And it's Magnus Carlsen moving on with a win over Fabiano Caruana. Danny, a really, really impressive result for Magnus, who honestly had to do a little bit of a comeback, right? A little bit of work there. It was a very close match in the Blitz.
Team Liquid stacked the left side of the bracket, I guess, just to make sure they'd get somebody to London. But there you go. No, Magnus did have to work today. The final score, I don't think, was representative of how close this one felt throughout. Right at the end of the 3-1, Magnus did seem to find his form, and then that momentum certainly carried him into Bullet, as we can see, the 6-2 score. Not what we predicted before the match, which was 4-4. So Magnus gets the job done.
Yeah, certainly. This is now, finding out who he's going to play. That's what we're interested in next. Who's he going to play? Who's going to be the next quarterfinalist that moves on to the semis? And of course, Danny, this has now officially painted that picture that with the win there, everyone else who makes it and wins their quarterfinal match also qualifies to the EWC. Kind of a interesting caveat there.
Reminder for everyone on the format, because both the Speed Chess Championship and the Chess.com Global Championship, which will be later, announcements coming on that very soon, they both have 3 direct tickets regardless of the overall CCT standings and every week's Title Tuesday. So Magnus Carlsen just did everyone a huge favor because he already has the reigning champion ticket, and he'll be in London, and everyone will be happy to see him there no matter what, even if he beats them all. That'll be fun.
Next matchup, as we talk about these quarterfinal matchups all getting underway, as we try to learn who's going to be joining Magnus in London. The next one, Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So. Danny, this one is taking place on the 17th of November. And mark your calendars, 2 p.m. Eastern time. That's 8 p.m. Central European time. The All-American matchup, and, well, actually, just a matchup, Danny, that, to be frank, has really not gone Wesley's way historically in the SCC. So will Hikaru punch his ticket forward in this event, as he pretty much always does anytime he participates?
Yeah, these guys, I don't know if they've ever played in the quarterfinals. It's almost always been a semifinals or a finals matchup. But yeah, Hikaru has gotten the better no matter when they played. And so Wesley will have to really turn things around somehow if that's not going to be the case.
Yep. Well, that's the next matchup. Make sure you mark your calendars for that one. Today was at times close, and then, at the end, just not close at all, as the all-team Liquid matchup ends with Magnus Carlsen. Going forward, he'll be in London at the live finals. But Danny, we're wrapping up our show here for today. Hope everyone who watched the entire way certainly enjoyed the closeness of the match at times, and ultimately we get to see Magnus Carlsen play more chess for us, and that's what we all love. So signing off for today's show, Danny and myself, and shout out to the producers, the mods, and the chat. We'll see you guys for the next matchup. Bye for now.